Yeah.
Okay, 1 second, then we'll be ready.
He died.
We all set? Hey,
Real good.
let me know when you're all set. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 6:01. This is a hybrid meeting, which means that it's in person as well as Zoom. I don't know if you have this, I don't know if you just have one person on Zoom. This one is on channel 9 live. It will be uploaded to YouTube, so anybody can watch it. I don't think any members other than Nicole are on Zoom. I would ask for everybody to stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unfortunately, we don't have any more silence. There's nobody's supposed to speak. One of the So we have a couple scheduled appointments. The first one is the Eagle Scout project, building an observation platform at Broad Cove Trail, and this is Jacob Patello. You want to approach the podium, please? And could you give us your name and address, and then you can sign that sheet that's up there.
My name is Jacob Patello at 2320 Chestnut Street, right now as well.
Can you silence all cell phones, please? Hey, Jacob, can you tell us what the project is going to be?
So my project is at Broad Cove. There is a rock in the middle of the marsh. It's a beautiful view of the marsh, and from the main trail, there's no way to actually get that view. And I believe people will be able to get out there to that view. They will see the great land, the great marsh, be able to see why we need to conserve this land, and how great it is. And I believe that put an observation post right on the middle of the rock, it will be a great landmark. So people go, oh, I want to go there during my walk. So they'll be more thrilled to go out there, see that land, see how great it is, see why it's good to protect, and just help, in general, we'll maybe put more funding into that. People want to see better and grow better, and overall help the survive and keep it up.
Sounds like an interesting project. Mr. Ferry, have any comments on this? I know you always get involved in these legal projects.
Yes, this is actually a pretty cool idea. He has a lot of challenges ahead of him for this. It's not just a observation stand. It will be the similar stand that's out on the trails now, but everything has to be hand carried in because of the location. We still got a little bit more work to do with conservation, but we got verbal approvals, so just some fine tuning to do after that. But he has some challenges ahead of him. But that rock he's talking about is, I would say, it's close to 30 feet in elevation. So it's worth the walk.
I have not walked that trail. Does the board have any questions?
Actually, best of luck, and working through Mr. Ferry, anything John we can do to help you, just reach out to us. Okay, don't hesitate.
Gotcha.
What's your
Gotcha, 45.
Rachel, I was married to January. I wish you the best.
What's the timeline on this? Is there any time when this will be complete? Have any idea?
Planning to try to get it at least to the end of this year, start of next year, sort of winter frame. Try to get it done between them. Just, sooner I get started, the better.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
My first, so this is awesome. I'm really glad you're doing this, and it's in line with, I think, a lot of the work that the Trails Committee is doing and a lot of the projects that Eagle Scouts before you have done. So this is fantastic, and I'm really proud to support you on it. I did just have two quick questions. How many people could theoretically use the observation platform at one time?
I think around 2 or 3 people can be on it at the time. Well, I have exact numbers here. It is about 7 feet to 8 feet wide as long, and it is 4 feet, so it's about 7 feet to 4 feet.
Nice.
3 people easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And where will, I guess maybe this doesn't matter, but I'm just curious for my own knowledge, and where will the rock be moved to? Like, is it just gonna be moved over or completely removed?
It's gonna, I'm trying to get the post like right on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's over the viewing.
Nice. That was it. Congratulations.
I'll entertain a motion then to approve the Eagle project.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve, we're not, are we approving it or are we, I forget the exact verbiage, allowing it to proceed? Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we allow Jacob Patello's Eagle Scout project to proceed as presented this evening.
Second.
Any discussion or further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it unanimously.
And you
Okay,
need
well,
anything
thank you for
else?
doing this project. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just,
Just needs a signature
yes.
authorizing the proceed.
The chairman, it's just the chairman.
Could I have that, please?
It's very well.
If you need
Okay,
anything,
okay.
if you need anything, don't hesitate to let us know.
Thank you, sir. The next scheduled appointment is with Building Commissioner James Aguirre regarding the Dyke Elementary and Middle School entrance exit drop-off design. Sure. You have the floor.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Good evening, Dayton. Good evening, Selectmen. Everyone in the room. So this project has been a process. I want to try to start from the beginning, but I'm not going to go over all the details. Everyone knows that that site is congested, always has been, is getting worse as enrollment goes up and the town expands. So we identified some concerns. Basically, we have a congestion issue when we have drop-off pickup times. We have only one way in and out, basically, on Center Street. The exit onto 138 is an outgress only. So we brainstormed a while back. We acquired some land. We have additional land on the campus. And we decided to move forward with the engineering study to see if we can redesign the campus, specifically with roadways, traffic patterns, et cetera, et cetera. So Tom Ferry and I, along with contracted engineer Zenith, now Zager, we came up with a conceptual plan which was given to the selectmen a while back. We had a lot more site work to do, the pandemic hit, delayed everything. We now have a plan that encompasses our initial discussions, a site visit, which was well attended. Ken, you were there, there were many people there. There was some good input from the school side, from the public side. So we took that information, came up with this plan. The plan, we feel, is solid. It will check off all the boxes. The problem is in the discovery phase, we have wetlands on the property that are much more extensive than we originally anticipated. And that can only be ascertained when you get out on the site, put your boots on, and figure out where the delineations are. So that said, we're at a crossroad where if this plan is the plan we're going to move forward with, and we can discuss this through Niall's presentation, we have some additional filings that need to occur that are outside the original engineering scope that we contracted with Zenith Engineering for. The wetland disturbance area will trigger Army Corps of Engineer approval. So we not only have local and state, we also have federal approvals that we need. Now that may seem daunting. I already contacted the Concord office for Army Corps of Engineers. They were extremely helpful. we emailed back and forth, they are more than happy to help us with this project. So Niles informed me that the state will probably be the most invasive or not difficult, but will take the longest to get through. So we'd like to bring you through the campus. Any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer, and then we'll see how this progresses. This is a real great project, I hope it happens. This is just another step in the process, but I think in the end, it will do what we need it to do to make that campus safe and lose the congestion, so.
Just a quick question, did this plan change any since the site visit that we were at?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll touch upon that. Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, Niles Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers. I have 11 by 17 handouts that I can give. One of them is the original that was done, and one is the new. The newer one is the one that has the color yellow and blue area by the softball field at the entrance, and this is the so that's the newest.
Cable, you able to get that?
No.
The public,
He's sliding on this side. Is he gonna go to the camera?
the public, so we have copies.
Yeah, we wanna maybe stick it in that one, we can run it with that. Thank you.
So face it this way.
Yes, that's perfect. Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you. Does everybody have one in their work to see? All right, so as Mr. Aguirre stated, there's not a lot of major changes. However, permitting wise, there are. Some of the major changes or the changes that you will see on there are the reconfiguration of the parking lot and maintenance building. Originally, we had the maintenance building pushed further forward into the parking area. We had the parking area located, in this area here, in the grass field area here. That was, thank you. So that area there was where we had, I believe, a little over 100 parking spaces. And from what we understand, that's an area that's used a lot for the kids, and actually, I guess, an emergency landing spot as well. So it wasn't ideal, but it was at the time it was because of initial planning, wetlands and what have you. Well, when we get into the new wetland delineation, which was kind of like the unknown at that time, we were using Mass GIS, like conceptual wetlands. Now we have a more definitive. We had a professional botanist go out there, Bob Gray from Selectmen, went out there, he analyzed it, came back and said, listen, Niles, the wetlands are a lot more extensive than what was initially planned. And unfortunately, that's typical. The state wetlands that are shown are typically, not as extensive as what's actually out there on the ground. But that's what we were working with at the time. So now that we know what we're working with, there was two different issues. One being, there's much more extensive wetlands located at that entrance that's proposed out onto Center Street. And then there's also a vernal pool that was located where the maintenance building was. That was where it was shown on Mass GIS. That's actually moved further west there, which was actually a huge benefit, because what that did, that allows us to be able to push that maintenance building back. And what that did was it allowed us to relocate that parking area. And by doing so, we were able to get 120 parking spaces total between parallel spaces on the entrance coming in from Center Street, as well as some parking spaces at the south of it, Jim, right, further down. Those 20 spaces, no, even further down, right there, yeah. There's 20 spaces there, and then 80 spaces in the parking lot by where the proposed maintenance building is. So that's the major reconfiguration. And then that entrance, so that one way onto Center Street, which is really kind of the most important part of this whole thing. What this does is it allows us, and this was brought up by Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aguiar, which I think is a great idea. It pulls the traffic away from the center of the intersection. And what that does is it allows the queue to back up, it allows people to get out going other ways, and it basically can avoid that intersection as much as possible. And it just makes it's gonna make it so much more user-friendly in there. But by doing so, originally, if you look at the old plan, it was a 90-degree turn. There was less than 5,000 square feet of impact to the wetland resource area. That's kind of the key number. Unfortunately, now we're at a little over 15,000 square feet. And unfortunately, that's the shortest distance. There's no way around that. That's having a 20-foot wide roadway, or access way, I should call it. That's needed for fire and emergency vehicles, so that's the minimum that we can have. And then you have to figure on grading and disturbance and things of that nature. So what you see on that plan, those colored areas, the blue area is the disturbed area, and the green area is the replication area. Whatever you disturb in area, you have to replicate. So that's part of this new proposal.
Can we be quiet back there, please?
So basically through this new process, a lot of it's still the same. You still have to deal with the local conservation, the local planning board, go through site plan review. There'll be a notice of intent filed with the Conservation Commission. None of that has changed at all. This trigger of a 5,000 square foot disturbance is really the major difference. And what that does is it triggers what's called an environmental notification form, an ENF. That gets submitted to MEPA, the MEP unit, which is the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act unit, and that's part of the EOEA, tongue twister. It's the Environmental Affairs, Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. And that form gets submitted, and you try to give them as much information on the project as you can. You give them site plans, there's a full, it's like a 300-page packet that you have to give them. And you go through all this information, and you hope that in that time with the state that the information that you give them, they will find that the information is adequate, and they will allow you to move forward with the project as proposed. Okay, and that's the hope. Now, the unknown is if the state says, well, no, we want more information. We don't feel as though this project meets the criteria of the ENF. Then we have to get into much more detailed, filing and plans and what have you. So that's what triggers called an environmental impact report, or an EIR. That's still filed with the same MEPA of the EOEA, but it's, like I said, it's just much more expensive. As I like to call it, like I say, it's like getting a, it's bad. Like I don't want to say it's bad, but it just takes a lot more time. So it just adds time and cost. We're fairly confident that this is not going to be necessary, but it is unfortunately, it is a caveat in the criteria that needs to be met that could possibly happen. So we just want to make sure that the town is aware of it, and that's kind of why we're here tonight. There's 2 other permits that are required. There's the 401 water quality certification that gets submitted to Mass DEP. That's a fairly simple, not too crazy form. That is done, and then that will be done after the the ENF, and hopefully the EIR not being required. And then after that, what is required is the 404 water quality, 404 Army Corps, and that's just the filing with Army Corps, and that is fairly simple. That's at the end. Army Corps is looking at the big picture. They're not looking at, unfortunately, but unfortunately, we're over that threshold. It's a very minimal impact in the eyes of the Army Corps. Over 5,000 square feet, around 10,000 square feet to them is very minimal. They're dealing with much larger projects. So this is small potatoes. So, again, that's kind of the phasing of it. That's what's the added, unfortunately, unknown at that point when we were originally filing this or coming up with this conceptual plan. We did not know, now we know. So that's why we're back before the town with this. So, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, go over. I know I kind of gave we've been working on this for quite some time, and there's a lot of information that I'm not giving that, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So I have a couple of questions. The proposed maintenance building is not closer to the vernal pool, it's within that 100 feet buffer. So is that a compound?
So it's further away from the vernal pool. The vernal pool is actually pushed, the vernal pool is actually been relocated.
Correct. The vernal pool's been relocated?
Yeah.
This area is now.
Not them, but now. Yeah, so.
Right.
It
Yeah.
hasn't moved. It's
Yeah,
here it is there.
It's moved on the plan, not moved, not, yeah, physically, yeah. Yeah, so that was a benefit for us, that's why we were able to do that.
And did we lose the parking spaces where the solar panels are? Is that?
No, that's right here, it's just not indicated on
It's
this
not indicated.
area. Right, so the area here where the solar panels are, is still gonna be parked.
Okay.
Yes,
And my third question is, has the school been involved in this
Yes.
plan?
they have.
Okay.
And the reason we're involved is we reoriented the ball field, as you can see here, because of wetlands. So I had discussion with them on that.
Did that end up taking, piggybacking off you, did that,
Well said.
did that change end up taking any more off the ball field or anything away from the ball field?
A little bit of the
Space?
outfield area,
Okay,
so that's why it had to be reoriented
okay.
to face this way. We still think we can move this ball field back a little bit, but for right now, for permitting purposes, this is where we're locating it. But depending on final permitting and what's allowed, it may adjust slightly. The school didn't seem like it was a big problem having it reoriented.
And my last question is, when you removed in the new plan, the proposed 101 parking spaces in the,
Green space?
yeah, in the green space at the elementary school, I know you added some to the side. I like this better because if you recall from the site visit, one of the issues, I wouldn't call it an issue, but concerns that the school district had was taking away because we used to play soccer and things out there, and I'm sure the kids still use the field. Was it to preserve the green space?
It was, yes. When we left that day, I said to Niles, we need to try to, whatever we do, we need to try to keep this green space open. It seemed like it was a well-used space by the school department. And the last thing we want to do is do something that the school department isn't work with their curriculum or their program. So that's why Niles went back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
I have a question. I haven't heard the word stormwater. Are they involved in this project?
Yeah, we needed to get to this point first, and make sure that the town was amenable to the changes that were made. And then once we go through permitting, stormwater will get involved, yes. But as you know, Mr. Ferry and I have been involved since its inception, so those questions have been brought up in discussion. So we're conscious of all of that, yes.
The second question has to do with the vernal pool. Vernal pools of actual water,
Right,
visible
right.
water. So how could there be a mistake
So,
in the drawing? Things are drawn
So
based on visual, I would hope.
well, the state, when we use the state mapping, the mapping says this is where the vernal pool is. It's just like a symbol on the plan, so that's what we went by. And unfortunately, it was just not accurate. And unfortunately, that happens. It's a nice tool, but at the time, we weren't at that more detailed survey, detailed wetland delineation phase, so we were just using it as let's keep this nice and let's keep this quick and dirty and see what we can come up with to see if it's even viable at all. And fortunately, in this situation, the vernal pool being moved, it helped us tremendously in the planning of the parking and the maintenance building.
In regards to the vernal pool, is that caused because of downgrade elevation or are they feeder springs?
So vernal pools can actually dry out. Vernal pools,
Then they come back.
they do. They come back usually in the spring and in the fall, and it depends on the creatures that are in there. There's different creatures that can come out and migrate. So what happens is the state has regulations based off of that. How it's fed can be from groundwater, it typically is, but it can also be from watersheds as well.
No, I'm aware of that, and that's why the question is, which is it?
At this point, we don't know.
Because that could impact your project.
No, if it's identified as a vernal pool, then it's gonna be identified and we need to stay the 200 feet away from it with all of our purposes. Right.
You mean regardless of what kind it is?
Correct.
Correct. I understand.
The vernal pool falls within the wetland. So the wetland is actually more, it's further out. The extent of that wetland is actually your restricted factor. It's not the vernal pool.
Right.
Originally we thought it was the vernal pool because it was the only thing that was there. It wasn't mapped as a wetland area, it was just a standalone vernal pool. Now with that vernal pool being located within the BVW, or Water and Vegetative Wetland, it has protection unto itself, but the BVW is what the restricted factor is.
Hence the reason for all the permitting.
But that vernal pool was always there, because even when I was in middle school, for science, we used to go out there and like look at salamander, whatever was in there. So it makes sense.
So it's a multi-generational.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask, and I know maybe it's hard to answer this question, but with the changes that we're discussing based on just the realities of the project, how does that impact the final, what we think would be the projected cost of the project?
The cost itself the overall project cost to actually construct hasn't changed that much. It's the permitting and engineering cost that's gonna be impacted. And the timeline.
Thank you.
Now, the question becomes, out of whose budget does that come out? School
Well,
budget?
Well, the contract with Zenus right now is a special article that was approved by the taxpayers at a special town meeting, or an annual, I forget which one. So if we're gonna move forward with this and there are cost increases in costs, I would project that we're gonna do the same thing. We'll have to put a warrant article on and make sure the taxpayers are in support of the additional costs. So right now, to answer your question directly, it's the Dayton taxpayers,
And not like a budget.
not a budgetary item.
That's risky.
They supported it once, and this isn't a redesign, this is just because the boots were on the ground and identified what was out there, it's an alteration of permitting, which changes the engineering costs and how they work. But it's a good question, Selectmen's office, but overall, the project cost is not very little escalation.
And to, I hope this helps answer you. I'm confident that the taxpayers will support this because the original idea for this project didn't come from the school district, it came from concerned parents.
Oh, okay.
Who were having issues with drop off and pickup and it not being safe and congestion and things like that.
Yeah, it's a safety issue for our students.
Yeah, the school department's done a great job, Mr. Wheeler in particular is phenomenal. He's made the very best of the difficult site, but we need to address this. Anyone who visits that property anytime in the morning or afternoon, or this intersection, knows the problem.
Are there any other questions?
I have none, thank you.
So since this is finalized, have you just approved, I'm looking at the town administrator, have you approved the proposed plan with the understanding that there may be changes if the permitting is being denied or changed?
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of you this evening, we have a proposed plan that in order to go forward, we have to figure out how we're gonna deal with, I think the permanent costs, that essentially are outside the original scope. And we do have a special town meeting coming up. And actually later on the agenda, the selectmen are expected to open the warrant. I think in my opinion, in order to continue moving this project forward, as it's presented, at special town meeting, we need to plan for a warrant article, which we could present to the residents and to the voters and the taxpayers then. like if that funding would allow us really to continue on in the process.
I have no issue with that, I think that's fine, and we'll let people decide if they want, the project to continue.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you plan to have a public hearing on warrant article this year?
Yes, I was gonna address that later, but.
I'm sorry?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
We've talked about, in one of our meetings, I don't know which one, that any warrant articles will have a public meeting, probably here, that the public can come and listen to the different warrants and see what the different proposals are. Yes, and those, the players, whether it's the highway department or whatever, if they get a warrant article, they'll come in and explain to the public what they're about.
Mhm.
There won't be a vote at that meeting, but there'll be a public meetings that the public can ask some
so
questions.
I would just ask Seaman to have a representative available for that night, just in case there are any questions from members of the public, especially when talking about real dollars.
And I'm thinking anyway, sometime in October, special town meeting is November 1st, so we'll have all the warrant articles settled by then, and we can have some kind of a meeting.
Sounds good. That's good.
So, should we vote then on this, or are we waiting on?
So I don't think we need a vote at this point, it's really a presentation with the understanding that in order to go forward, we need to plan for special town meeting warrant articles.
Well, I think they put this on there because they wanted to see if the board was, and I'm not saying you need a vote, but if the board was like amenable to the changes. And I guess my opinion, just from being familiar with the project from the beginning, is I think that the changes enhance the project. I think it makes the buy-in in terms of support from the school district more likely. So I'm gonna support it.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for continuing work on this. I know you have many other projects.
Next agenda item is public input. Whoever wants to speak, you can come to the microphone, use your name and address, and the news media, you have the newspaper. No. Mike's not gonna speak.
He wants to be safe at the table.
Yeah. Just be respectful. So is there any public input? How about on Zoom?
There's two people. There's a Chuck and a Nicole Mellison.
Nicole, do you have any questions for public input at this time? Or is it Chuck you said?
Yeah, Chuck.
Chuck,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Chuck,
All set, thank you.
thank you.
Identify yourself, please.
1693 Washington Street. I guess it's a clarification about the Facebook page for the town. And what happens to posts that are made by the public that actually go to that page? So a couple weeks back, I put a post on there, which kind of like, I wanted to test to see whether or not I have permissions to allow the public to get the post. And it appeared to allow me to create a post. And I shared that post. But then the post was undiscoverable after that. Like, you couldn't go search or see it, and I had to go to some very specific link from the share that I had created in order to be able to get back to it. I didn't think anything of it, but recently, Rafa had a similar issue. He made a post, right? It was a question, it disappeared, and it was unrecoverable again. So,
And you, with Rafa, I'm familiar with your post, but with Rafa, wasn't that very recent? Yesterday.
It was still there.
I saw it late this afternoon.
It's still there.
But
I don't know why.
When I do a search on your name, it's not showing up.
I'm not like, I have no idea.
so that's what the question is. It seems like there's a permission, like the administrators can probably see it, but not even the person that posted it can see it, and certainly the public can't see it. And it is there because if you have some type of special link, you can get back to it again. And if this feature is actually enabled for the public to be able to have discourse, then it's broken. And we should probably try to fix it. So what I'm asking is, one, is that actually a permission setting that we know about? And it doesn't, based looking at you guys, I don't think that's the case. I think it's probably something we have to investigate. If the feature is supposed to be available to the public, it really isn't. They're supposed to disappear.
You've gone on the website, the Facebook page, and looked at all the different comments from different Time to be close or something?
What he's
You
saying
didn't see
is,
your, you didn't see your comments?
it's not a comment, he's saying, I know exactly what you're saying. You're saying, he's not saying he commented on someone else's post, he made his own post. He said that he couldn't, it was actually wrong. So he said he couldn't see it, so I went on the page and I could still see it, but like you, I couldn't just go to the town page and find it. I had to go to like where I was tagged in a comment to find it again. So it was hard for me too, even as an admin of the page.
Because you did respond, you gave some good information, you had to do it directly to Rafa somewhere else, you couldn't do it where, at the point of origin. And it's just two separate occasions, like, first, I experienced it weeks ago, I dismissed it, and it recurred, and so it seems to be a systemic issue, I think we should investigate it and fix it.
We can,
This is a question, this is actually,
Yes.
Mr. Mullin, we have a tech person, correct? It's with us.
Yes, he's a network administrator, so he does the network administration.
Is he going to have some role in the Facebook page?
He is not.
and I'm not even sure he's like, that's not like out of his scope, I think.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, we pay for network administration, security, and webs, and all the backup, all of our data and web, all of our website and our network administration.
So who manages the technical issues of the Facebook page?
So the technical issues that are managed by the Facebook page are the administrators of the Facebook page. Which include the members of the Board of Selectmen, and myself and Ms. Brady and Ms. Kerwin. In terms of the prior posts, up until this week, yes. I think Mr. Miller is, is actually correct, they were there, and there was a lot of engagement on them. But in looking at the Facebook policy, one of the tools that, in my opinion, the Facebook page is about, is to get information out, and to communicate, get all the happenings in town actually coming out of our town government. According to the policy, there was nothing ever established in the Facebook page where we would really invite, actually public discourse onto our Facebook page. I'm aware that all the discourse happens in other pages, and as a way to streamline it, and understanding that that was never the intent of our town Facebook page based on the policy, one of the things I did, I didn't personally want and professionally, I didn't want a public discourse portion, to grow on our town Facebook page, which we use to communicate. And after I noticed that we actually inadvertently yesterday morning had that feature on, understanding again what the policy was, I did turn it off.
So I just want to be clear, because so what you're saying is, people can still comment on a post.
Absolutely.
But a person that's not really anyone, even an administrator, cannot create their own
posts on the
content posts on the
Yes.
page, is what you're saying.
Yes, the content on the post as it was envisioned by the policy comes from the administrator. It comes from the administrators of the page, which is the town of Dayton.
I think that is in line with the intent of the creation of the page, which if you go to the About section says, it's just for information. If you go to East Bridgewater or Bridgewater, I go to the other towns' Facebook pages to see sort of how they get information out. There's no public debate on the page. Okay. That happens in Facebook groups and other pages that other people create. So that's separate from the town. Also, when you have those, I want to be clear, when you have those debates on social media, those are all a public record. And that's why other towns don't want that. Because people will say, sometimes, I'm not talking about anyone here, but people will say, swear words, for example, which, people swear in their real lives, no one's clutching their pearls about it, but inappropriate for a public page. And so you can do things like profanity filters and not allowing posts on the page, but I did not know that was the case, I didn't know it was turned off, but I think that that is in fact in line with the intent, which is just to get information out.
Well, I agree with that, but we do allow people to make, like, if I post something,
Yes.
Bill can make a
Yes.
comment on what I post, if someone that's.
Correct.
Yeah, if you make something that's coming from the town of Dayton, the public has the ability to respond and weigh in,
Right, the way.
and we give
the way
information
Rafa
back.
did. Like he responded, there was a post about the agenda, right?
Yes, because he couldn't find his original post, so then he had to do it on a comment on a town of Dayton.
Yes, which is okay, which is okay.
So it was, the feature was turned on accidentally at some point, and recently you shut it off, is that what I heard?
So I think the default, so I believe the default feature, like, of a member of the public creating a post on the town Facebook page was, I think by default it was on.
Yep.
And I don't believe that was ever the intention of us having a town Facebook page, so understanding that, I went in and I looked at the permissions and the features of the administration of our Facebook page, and I did turn that feature off yesterday.
That's all.
So
That's all.
that explains.
But I just want to be very clear, people can still, like if, I don't know, like you posted a COVID update before. Like if you want to go and comment, like everyone can still do that. I guess what you're, like you just can't originate content. And I think Facebook considers it a visitor post. And I think by default, when you create a page, that's on. So you're saying you went in there and changed the default to off.
Yes.
Will that accidentally go back on again?
No.
I hope not.
So this provides a broadcasting function. And so then the next part of that is, because we have various different views within the town, and who gets to choose what originates on that site as a broadcast? The Selectmen?
For the administrator, I don't, if I post something, say for COVID, I don't run it by my colleagues in the board, I post just facts, not anything political. COVID, I guess some people think it's political, but COVID isn't.
But to answer his question, everyone can post. Like Mike has posted, Mrs. Kerwin will put the agenda on there. Actually, we have a Selectman Hall, the only one who has not posted, but Selectman Bishop will.
He has a right to.
Yeah, Mrs. Brady does as well.
So,
We have a general agreement that it's not gonna be political, that we're not gonna post something.
right, I'm gonna make a point here, and this is probably gonna end up being something that gets discussed further in the future. If not now, which is, if you post, even if you say it's not political, if you post certain types of information regularly, it seems to imply that the town has that bias, whatever that is. So if you're posting a lot of information about COVID and restrictions on COVID or recommendations about COVID and statistics about COVID, then it starts to brand the town with some type of a COVID-sensitive, environment. That's just an example.
I know when I post something regarding COVID, I sign my name, so it's not the whole town. I'm signing as information that I'm providing to townspeople with the number of COVID cases we had in the past week, the number of people who've been vaccinated. I don't think I've encouraged people to get vaccinated, but I probably should. Quite frankly, that's my position, that people should get vaccinated.
But you've never
But
done it on.
that's not political, as far as I'm concerned.
But I don't want to focus on the example as much as you can skew the information, and it actually makes it look like the town has particular concerns that are your concerns, if you use it regularly. Not everybody's doing that. And so how is that controlled? And the other thing is, there's going to be views that never manage to percolate onto that site, just because they don't have access to it the way that the administrators do, just the people right here.
But it's not to express views. Again, the site is just for information. I get what you're saying. You're saying if, and I know COVID is the example, but you're saying it gives the appearance like we have concerns when maybe the numbers are like four people get COVID in a week. So I understand your concern, but I just want us to remember that it's literally just supposed to be for information. No, even like opinions really are supposed to be expressed. Certainly no political opinions are supposed to be expressed.
Well, I mean,
But you could
I
still go on a
actually-
comment, but you could still comment something, like, so
No, I
you would
get
get
it.
out there.
so, but that's trying to counter information that's already there. I've seen the pride flag on there. I know, before I was intently focused, we had a Black Lives Matter rally here.
Mhm.
Was that on the page? I mean, it was on town property, wasn't it?
I don't believe it was.
There was a permit, someone, a private residence got a permit.
But so, like, if there's certain flavor of content continues to surface on the page, originated by a small segment of the town, then it starts branding the town with that particular information. So I'm questioning, Selectman Pacheco, I see your eyebrow. Okay, so I know that you're not completely agreeing with me, but I'm trying to make a point, I want you to understand it.
Yes.
And it is that that content needs to be non-biased. There was also a Meet the Candidate night, and there was some YouTube videos, and the thumbnail for the YouTube video was Jen Dukowski. That is promoting Jen Dukowski. You know, it should be non-biased, but in this case, whoever was controlling that social media managed to select a thumbnail
But
that.
they don't though, the thumbnail is automatic. The thumbnail is automatic.
But it is possible to select a different one.
It is, but it would have been someone else. It wouldn't, you can't just not have a thumbnail. So there would have been someone's picture.
Not to have a technical conversation about it, there was also a repost of one of the meetings that actually we had over in the basement next door, and it was the one where there was some controversial flag comments. And for whatever reason, there was a new version of the video posted, and what happened was the camera cut away from Selectman Pacheco when he was making some particular comments, and so you no longer saw him actually saying it. So that looks like manipulation of the content of some of these social media posts.
You do understand that I have no control over the camera.
Yeah,
Right.
cable.
I have no control over.
But I think I know what he's getting at. There were two
Post that
versions
on-
of that meeting that were uploaded, because one is the Zoom, and then one is the cameras in the room. So that's why, there was no manipulation. And if there was manipulation, I can honestly say that you would have, please, I mean this with love and respect, you would have no idea how to do it. And I mean, like, I don't even mean that, like, I mean that, you are not like, technologically savvy.
Whatever's on the screen, just like now.
I'll ask it straight up.
I didn't find that funny at all.
I'll say this straight up. Who has editorial access to YouTube?
Cable television can,
No, I said who, that's a person.
all of them.
Cable and all of them have
Yep.
access to.
Mm-hmm.
And cable are employees of the town of Dayton, is that correct?
Mhm.
And those employees answer to the town administrator, the board of selectmen, is that correct?
Yep.
As a result, I'm recommending that some restrictions, some transparency in place, because the perception, and you're hearing it this evening, is that things are not totally transparent. Later on this meeting, I am going to serve notice of a change of the minutes that I want to see take place of that June 16th meeting. Because once again, the minutes do not reflect transparency. Later in this meeting, I will speak specifically to that point.
Are you talking about the minutes you already approved?
I will make a motion later in this meeting to amend those. I have been advised that I must give notice and will request that it be placed on the next agenda.
And these were minutes that we all had an opportunity to read. You voted to approve it, and we all signed it. But I want to ask Cable, is somebody able to, does somebody edit our videos?
By Mass state law, we are not allowed with any open meeting to touch any video. Whatever raw footage we have goes out.
But the camera's cut from camera to camera, is that just automated?
We click buttons when people talk. That's it, that's all we do.
And any potential manipulation is human error on us. we can tell you specifically in this meeting, if we lose focus, lose attention for a couple seconds, one of us will correct the other and switch the camera. Usually it is very minuscule errors, but it's no manipulation whatsoever. We also have to take into account that these cameras are run by joystick, so we are at the mercy of the computer system on how quickly our cameras can turn.
And the question that I had, if I'm speaking, the camera's on me, and then it goes to somebody else, the public still hears what I'm saying.
Yes, all of our microphones are on. Right, every microphone in this room right now is on.
And they don't turn off, we keep microphones on.
And then these end up becoming YouTube videos, right?
These all go on YouTube,
Can you pick something?
they automatically choose.
So,
We can change them, but we don't because they just automatically choose and then one favorite of, you know what I mean?
I understand, but what I was talking about earlier was an important example of when you should select a different thumbnail.
We'll
Which
definitely consider that in the
is
future.
if you have multiple candidates facing off, you don't highlight one candidate.
Unfortunately, sir, YouTube only gives you 3 options for thumbnails, or it gives you the option to make a custom one. Unfortunately, my team is 3 people, we're all part-time. For us to make a thumbnail for the multiple videos that go out per week, that would add a high cost to our payroll, and with all 3 of us having full-time or multiple full-time jobs, it's unfortunately an untenable situation for us.
Can I actually offer a solution to this? Can we just use our town seal as a logo for all meetings going forward to make everybody happy?
Or the flag, there's like we could use a JPEG image of the town flag as well.
Whatever makes people happy, I'm cool with. If you can send me the thumbnail, we can just make that the meeting
Yeah.
thumbnail for everything going forward.
Question on that?
Just give your name and address, please. Yeah, sure. Rafael Delphi, 1 million Untitled Chapter. Do you know the reason why the comment section of the YouTube channel is excluded?
That was originally set up before we took control, I don't know if you want to
It's
answer that.
always been that way. But again, it's for information.
Yeah, I didn't get my first question.
Yeah.
I asked why the comment section of the YouTube channel?
To prevent abuse. Correct. Accurate. And misuse.
Actually, I want to go on the same way.
Sure. Yeah, my concern is basically how information is transmitted all over the town. Brett explained to me kindly that the official method of broadcasting minutes and agenda is through the public vestibule of the town hall. Not minutes, the minutes. We don't post
The
the
meeting
minutes.
agenda.
Yeah, but we don't post minutes.
No.
And then the meeting agenda, and then the vestibule is open to the public 24 hours a day. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. Now, my main concern is that how many Daytonians actually pay a visit to the town hall, to the vestibule, just to check the minutes and the agenda?
Nobody, that's why we do online now.
Right, so, which brings me to my proposal, is I'm reviewing the open meeting law guide of educational materials in 2018. And on page 8, there's a question that says, what are the requirements for filing and posting meeting notices for local public bodies? In the second paragraph, it says, prior to utilizing the municipal website, the chief executive officer of the municipality, and I don't have any idea who that is. Anyone? The CEO?
Yeah, we are the CEOs of.
You are the CEO. Must authorize or vote to adopt such website as the official method of posting notice. I understand there's some still people who prefer to check the vestibule, the public vestibule, to check the minutes and agenda, but we're living in a period where almost everybody has access to website. So I would like to propose to the town of Dayton to possibly make the official town of Dayton website as the digital vestibule, where the meeting and the notices should be posted exactly on the homepage. Because I find myself like struggling to find the link to the agenda, and not only me, but also a lot of people that I know that I spoke with, and especially the old people from Lincoln Village. They don't have any clue what's going on. I mean, they rarely come
to the town hall, to check the notices. Not even giving any access to the smartphone or an app. Is that an app, by the way? Is there an app?
We're not that cool.
Okay, that's not a problem. There is an app for our website.
I mean, you could go
Yeah.
You could go on.
You're not talking about the Facebook page, you're talking about the website. I'm talking the town website, the official website.
I would actually agree with you, but let me finish. The only concern that I have is not for the Board of Selectmen, because Mrs. Kerwin is the website administrator and she'll get it up there on time. I think it's impossible to have them all be on the homepage just the way that the website is set up. And that's of no fault to our own, it's a homepage and there's nowhere to put that stuff. And the other concern that I have is just a logistical concern. Again, not for the Board of Selectmen, because we're consistent. Our committees and subcommittees are consistent, but it's other boards, because then we would technically be responsible for like I'm just gonna pick a name up, the Trails Committee didn't get their stuff out on time. And I don't want to bind their hands. I will say, your question made me go back and look at the different boards and committees independent pages, and most are actually pretty good about getting them up there, but I'm nervous just to actually enshrine them, because then we're reliant, because if someone doesn't post the agenda on the website 48 hours in advance, then it's an open meeting law violation. And that's my only concern. I want to be clear, your idea is great. I wish we could do it. When I did the website over, that was my intent, was to have everything be online. But then what I found out is, other boards and committees, I mean, they're volunteers, right? They may not care to put it online, or they have other stuff to do. So I don't know, those are my just practical concerns, but I do respect the idea, and I actually think it's a good idea. My only concern is logistics.
So whoever is chief executive officer is this the same entity that runs all platforms of the town, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube?
We all have that.
Snapchat, whatever.
Yeah, we're not.
We have no Snapchat.
No.
Well, we're not, I mean, personally, people may be on Instagram, but if the town's on it? You're so correct about me being so deliberate. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. I actually have a second issue, which is still related. Mr. Mullen, you want to respond to it? Okay.
So yes, and I understand Rafa's point, and I understand Dr. Z's point as well. Like, I think in terms of having a streamlined fashion of posting meetings on our website, like all the agendas and all the minutes, they go through the town clerk. So he is the central repository, if you will, who's able to keep track of the agendas, when people are meeting and everything else. So I think, like in order to utilize our website, exactly like you're speaking, and like actually, other communities I know have opted into that practice. I do think, it is, we should have a conversation with the town clerk. In my view, the responsibility for that would be in the town clerk's office, because he is the keeper of the agendas, and that's where all the agendas go in the first place. So I think involving him in the discussion whether or not, our Board of Selectmen, we do this on a regular basis. We post all of our meeting packets, which I think are the only community that I'm aware of that actually does it. But in terms of how we streamline it, in terms of like a global view in terms of all our boards and committees, I think it's a conversation that really would involve our town clerk at this point as well.
I'm happy to have that conversation, and to your point, I almost called him Mr. Doctor.
Doctor.
Right, I love it. I do think it's a good idea. I think next year we get a free revamping of the website, and I think we could actually have as part of that discussion be making the homepage a place where we can put agenda, maybe we can't do every committee, but like maybe 3 or 4, the most recent next ones. And I think that's a good idea, and I'm happy to have that conversation with Mark. But I certainly don't want, because then he's responsible for posting. We have a lot of committees. We have 30 to 50. I don't know the exact number, but
Yeah, and I understand wholeheartedly, I understand exactly the deficiencies with that website. I mean, I get frustrated as much as.
Hey, be nice, I worked hard.
No, in terms of the layout, not the content that is there,
Just
but
have to find some information.
how it's laid out and where different groups and department upload information, and it's not actually uniform across the board. I understand we have, an upgrade available, I think December, January, and I would like to explore that. And upgrading what we have because we have a current contract. However, I believe a year and a half that contract is up. And I think there might be other hosting platforms that are out there as well.
That's true.
That actually do a better job centralizing all of that, just as a function of their platform. And I personally, I wanna look into that as well, because I think that would go a long way in addressing all the feedback that you're presenting tonight, and frankly, the feedback that we're getting on a daily basis.
I have a second issue, totally unrelated. I love this building, the old town hall. I think the town did a wonderful job renovating the whole thing. But it just saddens me to see all this junk, all these trash. It's becoming a storage. And when the Historical Commission hosted the Boston Postcard ceremony in June 17th, and then July 2nd, those boxes were already there. So why are we doing this to our beloved town hall? First of all, I don't think they're junk. I think they're, well, junk to the outsiders. But it's all stuff that we need to preserve. But he's doing some renovations downstairs. I think that required that stuff to come up here.
Because the Board of Health required space for PPE during the pandemic, this stuff was displaced. I can't shred it until I go through it. This stuff was all here prior to my employment. But because of the Attorney General's requirements, I can't just shred it arbitrarily. I need to look at it to see what it is, and that takes time. And it's not something that I can put in the hands of an intern or someone who doesn't know what they're looking at. So your point is taken, we'll try to find another place to put it, but it isn't because people have any sense of malice or disgust for this building.
Well, I'll also consider it a fire hydrant as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosa, you had your hand up?
Yeah,
Can you give your name and address, please?
David Rosa, 323 Lincoln Avenue, North Dayton. Just to follow up on some of my Margaret's comments here. First of all, but before I go there, am I mistaken that you have clerical help associated with your office, their experience, and you've had them for some time?
Yes.
Can you pick a date that's your goal to resolve this matter?
Sure.
12 months out, 6 months out?
Sure.
Can you name that date or month?
I'll come up with one in between the 1,000 permits that I issue each year.
Okay.
I just, the clerical help is part-time and it's shared.
Yeah, she works 21 hours a week for the building department.
Okay.
But I'll make that a priority, Mr. Rosa.
Okay, I'm just saying, sometimes you pick a goal and it helps you get where you're going.
I pick goals every day. Look around.
Okay, well, apparently you have one more you might want to consider. So getting back to the world of connecting electronically, when we built our police station, or the drive to build a new police station, there was a lot of conversation about how embarrassed we were because we were in the Stone Age on the building that we kept our police in, right? Now, we belong to a congressional district that contains 33 cities and towns. How many of those do you think have worse website connectivity than us? Probably not many. We belong to a state senator's district that contains 11 cities and towns. Well, name one that's worse at this than we are, So we have to cross this bridge. And the comments you heard, maybe the answer is you can have the media, the social media sites has sort of unofficial, with a note that says this is an unofficial communication. And for the official communication, look to the town administrator's office or call them or whatever, and find the official position regarding a meeting of a committee. But we have to get there. And the delay and the endless evaluation or discussion is, we just have to cross that bridge. So, I'm not gonna ask you to pick a date, but I am gonna say, you know, you really should commit to it. Other cities and towns solve this matter, they've solved it long ago. It's well within the reach. We have the talent, the brain power, and we're sincerely interested, whether it's elected officials now or people in the community, we can get there. So I'd just like to see us make much more of a sincere effort to cross that bridge.
I think Mr. Mullen made a comment that the contract is gonna be changing, right? We have an opportunity to have an upgrade or actually get a new contract.
Yeah, we have a year and a half left on the current platform contract, but in, 5 months, we have the ability to upgrade within that year and a half, upgrade our current platform. Oh, and I've only been here for, I think, 5 months now, but I mean, I see a lot of issues in terms of how things are centralized and organized. Frankly, the accessibility of our website as well, like for a whole host of reasons, and yeah, it's been a priority since I got here, and I know I have my work, like actually cut out for me there, but it's a priority.
Okay, I just want to say it's time. We gotta cross this bridge. Even if it's a trial period or a trial balloon, however you wanna sort of label it to get us moving down this path. And delay is no help to any of us or to the town. Thank you. We have some time because we're under a contract. With the formation of a focus group, be any of assistance to you in putting together a list of recommendations for the new contract?
So I think, in my opinion, right now, I know the issues we have with our website wholeheartedly. I mean, in terms of accessibility, nothing being centralized. If you go on other towns' websites, in my opinion, I think it's a platform issue. I mean, when, like Revise, which is our website platform, like at the beginning of their time, when Revise actually organized and developed as a company, they were one of the most, they were very prominent, they were very, they were very modern in terms of, their look and feel of their website. And as we know, however, website development, and all the graphics and the usability is evolving on a daily basis. And I think one of the, and I understand, Dr. Z, all the work you put into it, and I think it's really phenomenal. However, it's the website platform itself that hasn't, just in my opinion, upgraded as quickly as other platforms have. And I think that might be one of our challenges in terms of I think there's another platform called Civics Plus, that has a lot of other towns, and
That was okay.
Huh?
It was okay. Revise was actually better at that time than they were.
Yeah, but Civics Plus since then has actually leaped forward. Revise was it, and then Civics Plus has leaped forward in terms of, in my opinion, how they centralize
They were
everything.
way more expensive too. They were like double the cost.
Oh, and that's the other thing. I mean,
Free web design.
Exactly, talking about website development and upgrading these platforms. Like in my prior position, I priced it out, and just a baseline platform is 25 grand. And that's so we're trying to maximize what we have, especially for the next year and a half. I hear the board and I hear the public loud and clear that this is a priority, and we'll continue to make it a priority in terms of actually bringing in the town clerk, seeing if we can have a conversation with him, seeing if he can actually help us centralize, really that calendar on the home page that is supposed to have all the agendas. So maybe ideally that it won't be. I know we ask all our boards and committees to do that, and frankly, a lot of times I don't think. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and I'm just wondering if we have the opportunity to ask our town clerk for his help in figuring out a better way to do it.
We can't complete two issues. What you're talking about is the homepage. If the agenda isn't on there, it's because the committee didn't upload it. The new vendor isn't gonna solve that.
Oh, I agree.
So
Like,
we can make it
centralizing the
easier, but if
agenda.
someone decides not to do it, then someone decides not to do it, you know? And then those questions about transparency should be directed at that individual, not, that's why I'm nervous to have one person be doing it. And I'm sure if we
I don't
have Mr.
disagree.
Pacheco, he's not gonna wanna be that one person, but, you know, we should have that conversation, I'm happy to do that.
And at some point in the future, not the next meeting, but we should bring this back and we should have a full discussion, discussion as to what changes we think we need for our website before we get into the.
Well, the first change, and it would require no money, is we should send out an email to the board committee clerks or chairs or someone and just say, when you post your agenda, you post it under the agenda and minutes on your webpage, but also on the calendar on the homepage. I mean, this is very easy. We can do this. I don't do that. Dave, we're gonna cross the bridge together, okay?
All right, wonderful. We have a big heart, I think we got room for it.
Your name and address, please.
Tom Luigi, 2086 Mauer Street, thank you. I'll be very brief, I'm not oppositional or anything like that. I'm all in favor of us having a larger web presence and so forth. We did something like that in the Masons, I went to Masonic Lodge in Somerset. And for years, we had a secretary whose idea of copy pasting was literally that, copying and pasting. He would actually take little blurbs and tape them to the previous month's notice and hand those to the printer and make a trifold brochure. And somebody once suggested to me that we, on the Republican Town Committee, should use a trifold brochure, and my answer was, what is this, 1946? So it would be nice if we had kind of a central repository. Now, I read the law, and the law does state that it needs to be in a vestibule with 24 hours access, and you guys, hit that on the head, and you've got a 48-hour window or something like that prior to a meeting. What I instituted in the Masons was to exceed the standard. And in exceeding the standard, well, the standard from the Masons was horse and buggy days. It was literally, you mailed out the lodge notice with 2 weeks' notice prior to a meeting. And it was mailed out, and somebody had to have a copy, a mail-in copy, an actual paper copy. We started doing away with that slowly as the members from that generation unfortunately died off, to the point where we're now almost all digital, and we've reduced our costs. I mean, you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here, but to exceed the standard, I think would be a great thing. So to have the access to the websites and so forth in the hands of the town clerk or the town clerk's designee, I think would be fantastic, because I think it would start to eliminate some of the perception of bias that might be out there. It would streamline things, it would speed things up, and it's a great synthesis for all of us. That's all I really have for you. Thank you.
I do, I agree with everything you said, Mr. Gucci. I do just want to remind everybody, we currently are exceeding the standard. It's not up to obviously where we want it to be. Part of it is the platform, but part of it is the vestibule is, I want to be clear, it's not a decision that anyone on this board made. Some board of selectmen before us decided that, thank you, selectmen, I always got my back. Some board before us had decided that it was going to be the vestibule, and that's why it's open 24 hours. When I got elected, do you know what you had to do to find out that there was a meeting? Even that there was a meeting, you had to come to town hall. This was 2016, by the way. Okay, this is like recent history. Thankfully, I had colleagues like Selectman Goulart who saw the value in wanting to redo the website and make the information easier for people to find. We've grown a lot since 2016. We have a lot more committees. People joke around, we have a committee for everything. That's probably true. They need space on the website too, and that's why things end up getting buried. Now we have a chance, to your point, Mr. Gucci, where we can say, we have all this data, we have a layout that we think can be improved, how can we improve upon that? So I actually think we're in a better space right now to make those improvements. But I do just want everyone to be aware that us putting stuff online is so you don't have to come to town hall, so you can be be informed on what is gonna be discussed at the meeting. So I just wanted to point it out.
Yes.
I don't know if that person was on before I walked up in.
I don't think she's saying
I don't think
anything
she's saying-
in default.
We had asked if they had any questions
Okay.
and
I didn't really come to speak on this, but when you brought up ancient history, the reason why the vestibule is used, there must be a place where you can post 24 hours a day to the public. And because the vestibule can be open and the town hall can be locked, that's why it's there. And also those pages, similar to the assessors maps, where you can go and you should be able to see the heading and find out what committee it is. The main thing we had to deal with was access for the public, and the fact that it's not a meeting officially posted until the town clerk stamps it in and posts it. And so that's why when you go to town hall, the clerk's office, they stamp it in, they usually give the committee person a copy, and they walk right out and they post it right there. So, I don't have a problem with electronic, but I honestly think we should continue with the
Yes,
vestibule.
I 100% agree with you.
Only because of what happened, and we weren't, I was gonna say cited, we weren't cited like you're breaking the law and all this other stuff. It was made clear to us that you can't lock up the place you post. So, fortunately, we had a vestibule, we could put it in. So that's how that all came about, and yeah, it was quite a few years ago.
I share my concerns with, I want to be clear, again, everything should be online. People should not have to come to town hall if they don't want to, or anywhere to see the public posting. But my concern is just if we don't have one person doing it, and now we have a town clerk who feels comfortable, I think, with that technology, and maybe, I don't want to speak for them, maybe willing to do it. So it kind of changes the game, but I agree, we should keep it as the official posting place is the vestibule, just so we don't have those open meeting law complaints if, I'm trying to think, I keep saying the Trails Committee, I'm sorry, Jeff Carvalho, but if the Trails Committee doesn't post their agenda, now they violated, and I want everyone to know in this room, things like that will happen. We have individuals that don't live in Dayton that make complaints all the time. They did it when you were on the board with me, Selectmen Goulart. So it does happen. Other boards have gotten cited with open meeting law complaints because for one reason or the other that we're not the Board of Selectmen. It does happen. Not everyone is as familiar as we are in these meetings with procedure and things like that and the open meeting law. So I'm 100% with
And
that.
another thing to remember is that Rehoboth Regional School District not only has an official posting place at the regional high school, they must post in each of the towns. And the Bristol County the Bristol County Commissioners, when they have their meetings, every community must get the notification so that it's posted. Again, that's not why I came tonight, and I don't wanna just cut anybody off, but since I'm standing here, I just wanna express my appreciation for all the town of Dayton did in publicizing the PMC bike ride. I know there were thousands and thousands of riders, as usual, the Dayton Police, Fire, Highway, everybody involved in this town did a super job. I met my two teammates at the driveway between the Standish house and Mr. Orsini's house, and they didn't have their final total in, but this is a two-person team that had raised, as of Saturday, and it wasn't finished, $16,000, which was a record for them. And that's just two people. And the other thing was, as I was standing down there waiting, thinking, and looking around and noticing how things were going well, I think this one, with all the work and all the announcements you did, being so proactive and saying to people, hey, it's coming, that I had requested, I think it struck close to home recently, and we all now, you know what I'm referring to. And so this one was kind of especially poignant, let me put it that way. So thank you very much. I think that the town of Dayton did a great job.
Thank you, Mrs. Goulart.
I just, want to add on to that. There was an individual, an unsung hero, a guy who does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, who I know because I was with him on Friday afternoon, and his day was supposed to be a half day. And I left him at noon. Mr. Ferry, thank you for your efforts in putting those things together.
Doug White, Forest Street.
What's the address? We need the address.
455. So town of Dayton Board, Selectmen notice, regular meeting notice, the email address is hyperlinked. I sometimes have a hard time getting here. I've only recently started, kind of like paying more attention. But sometimes it's easier for me to be on the Zoom. And if that were hyperlinked, I wouldn't have to type in all these little numbers here, just like the email address is hyperlinked, you just touch the blue thing.
Yep.
So if we could get that, that's just one little request I think we've been saying to take care of.
You had mentioned,
Yeah.
what is hyperlink?
Yeah,
No.
so the email address is in a blue, and if you just touch it.
You are not the first person that said this.
And then it would go on, because I have a Zoom app on my phone, and if I just touched it, I'd be able to
It opens it
listen
up
to
right
it on my
away,
way home
doesn't
from
it?
work.
Like when you click it, Doug, doesn't it open right away in Zoom?
No, because it's black.
But if it was though,
Yeah.
if it was a hyperlink.
What I can do, but I can't do it on my phone, is on a laptop, I can copy and paste it.
Yeah.
And then put it in.
Okay.
That's how to do it on driving.
That's an easy change, we can do that. Also, good thing you didn't try to do it tonight, because I'm not sure that link was correct.
Okay.
So we will get that fixed.
Thanks.
So there is a possibility, Leanne, to be able to do that.
And the reason is because each Zoom meeting has a unique hyperlink and or URL, and then also meeting ID and password. So it has to be updated every day.
I use the meeting ID and password.
Be ashamed if we missed.
Anybody else? Announcements. Dr. Ziggy, you read announcements, please?
Yes. And I just wanted to start with an announcement, which is there was some confusion, and I just want everyone to know that we do make every effort to post both the agenda and the meeting packet on Tuesday afternoons. The Board of Selectmen, as you know, gets it sort of late in the afternoon, almost end of business day. We will continue to do that. So I just want everyone to be aware that that's usually when it comes out around 4:30-ish on Tuesday. And we will continue to do that for everyone.
But, and I know you mentioned it on social media, but if you could say it to the public, what we must do and what we do as a convenience.
Yes, so what we are obligated, hopefully the Attorney General isn't watching, but if I mess up.
Usually does.
What we are obligated to do is post the agenda only 48 hours in that vestibule before the meeting. That's it. That's the open meeting law, the way things are right now. What we are doing is posting the agenda sometimes on Monday, Mrs. Kerwin will do it, but sometimes we simply wait till we have the packet on Tuesday, and then we do the agenda and the packet on the website and on the Facebook. So we will continue to do that. It is a convenience. No other town, I just want to be clear, I'm not patting myself on the back, no other town that I know of in this state gives people the same packet that the Selectmen get. We don't get anything separate. That is, you are seeing what we're seeing. We will continue to do that. Town of Dayton public buildings are open to the public. The library is closed to the public, but does continue to offer curbside service. The Town of Dayton food bank distribution will be held next on August 21st, 2021, located at the Town Hall, 979 Somerset Avenue on the lower level, not as a drive-through, right?
That is correct.
Okay. The Dayton Historical Society is holding a walk in the cemetery event with the Gravestone Girls at the Dayton Unitarian Cemetery at 2036 Elm Street on Thursday, September 9th at 6 p.m. Learn about gravestone art, symbolic meaning, cemetery evolution, and more. Reminder, license your dogs. It is the law. Leash your dogs for everyone's safety. All dogs 6 months of age or older must be licensed yearly beginning January 1st. All dogs must be restrained by a leash or chain when on any street or public place in town. If you have any questions, please contact the clerk's office at 508-669-5411, option 2. And I just wanted to add one last thing. I think Community Corner with our town historian has restarted again. I just watched the first episode of the second season. It was really cool. Check it out. Shameless plug.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one thing I've listed, and I just have a few other comments as well. But to start off, as we all know and have seen, on the news and around, there has been an uptick in COVID cases, actually confirmed COVID cases, like in the region, like and in the town, especially the last 2 weeks. We went from actually the beginning of July to averaging around 1 case a week. In the last 2 weeks, we've been at least 7 cases a week. The state, unlike what it had been doing, through the majority of the last year, actually the state has actually stopped its color scheme system, in terms of the gray, green, yellow, and red system. But based on that and based on the recommendations actually coming from the CDC, we are currently, in terms of Bristol County, at a high risk in terms of COVID transmission. And understanding that and understanding the, what we've been through, and where we've been, I think everyone wants to get back to so-called normal, but as a town, when the pandemic task force met, actually on Thursday, August 5th, we did discuss actually the uptick in cases and did, and we're committed to continuing things as we have resumed in the spring. However, we really just wanted to make sure we, actually remain vigilant, that we don't put in place any additional restrictions. But in terms of mask wearing, just actually encouraging the wearing of masks in municipal buildings going forward until we, hopefully have another downturn in decline. So that's what our recommendation is really to the board tonight. Just an encouragement of mask wearing. It isn't it is not any type of mandate. It's not any type of requirement. It's an encouragement of mask wearing. Going forward, just in municipal buildings only.
Can I ask?
I'm sorry, but this was discussed at the department head meeting also.
Yes, it
We talked
was.
to all the department heads that were there. They're all in agreement with this, having the voluntary people wear a mask, encouraging people
Are
to wear a
they
mask.
included, I guess is my question? Like, are we just talking about who are we talking about?
We're talking about the public and the employees.
Okay.
General public and the employees,
And
yes.
they also mentioned that their employees are okay with that too, so wearing a mask. So obviously, we're concerned the average COVID rate is 2.11 in the state, we're 3.4 in the state. As was mentioned, the past 2 weeks, it's been 7 new cases. Before that was 4 and 5 and 1 and 1, but the numbers are going up. I think we've already got to 6 already this week. And more people are getting vaccinated. 52% of our residents have vaccinated as of August 5th.
Yes. Mr. Administrator, when we talk about encouraging mask usage in Dayton municipal buildings, this is slightly changing the subject, but it's still related. How are we going to deal with boards and committees? And the reason I'm asking this is because I would not feel right encouraging mask use if and then be at the meeting not in a mask. So what are we thinking? How is this all working?
So in my opinion, in my recommendation, again, we're encouraging, we're not requiring. However, based on the discussion here at tonight's meeting, and based on what actually I'm recommending and encouraging, at our next meeting, once we have a little bit of weigh-in from the board of selectmen, at our next meeting, I'm gonna show up in a mask. But that doesn't require anyone else to show up in a mask. It leaves it to everybody having a personal choice.
Okay.
So I'm also in favor of us encouraging the employees as well as the public to come to any of our buildings to wear a mask. I'll wear a mask at our next meeting. I'll wear a mask when I come in Monday to meet with the town administrator. And I know our office is receptive to it. The board of selectmen's office is receptive to. I spoke to them regarding wearing a mask.
I don't want to move from this. I feel like I'm going to say something.
Don't.
I'm okay with this. If someone would like to wear one, that to me, they can wear one. I have no issue with that. And please don't, I don't want anyone to take offense to this. I agree that we should keep our eye on it and take precautions. But there's an old saying, you can find a statistic to prove anything. You can manipulate a number to prove whatever point you're trying to make. We're still doing well. We are doing well. Any person that gets COVID, that's sad and preventable, I agree with you. But just in thinking, because I used to do the COVID updates too, we are nowhere near where we were at the worst part. So we should be vigilant. I will also join you in wearing my mask and leading by example. But I don't
Just so you know, it's not a Halloween mask.
No. But I just want people out there to know that we're doing it out of an abundance of caution. It's not, I don't feel like, if I really thought that we were in some sort of state of emergency, I would be the first person that was like, if you're coming into town hall, you have to wear a mask. I don't feel like we're there yet. A percentage can be, again, manipulated. So yes, it looks like, 7 compared to last week where it was 1, yeah, that's a big, right? You're gonna look at it and you're gonna say that's 100%, right? But it's 7 compared to when we were having, because I used to get those reports and people were unfortunately passing away at that point. And we're nowhere near that way. So I just want people to understand we should be vigilant, but we are nowhere near where we were.
And that's why the suggestion is that it be voluntary, that it not be mandated. If the numbers go up, and I have no clue as to what the number would be, but I would at some point mandate it. The numbers are going up, hopefully it won't go up. But I do believe it's not the NTS. We are considered to be high risk at this point.
Good evening, Todd Building Foundation. We're not in the old red by the old metrics, we would still be in the yellow at this point.
Mr. Billy, I am well aware that earlier this year, numbers for the town of Dayton were inaccurately reported to the town. I am very much aware of it. My question to you is, have you identified in your work with the numbers, all of those patients?
I'm not familiar with the inaccuracy that you're referring
I'd
to.
be glad to discuss the agency involved with you in your office.
No, that's fine, I'm not aware of it, but, I know there's some.
Some of the conflict of interest going into detail.
No, that's fine. So we're in a, some of the confusion here maybe, and I know we could have this discussion earlier this week, there's 5 different categories that the Department of Public Health is looking into when you get put into the Maven system. One is a confirmed case, which is if you have a PCR test and it's confirmed. If you have a rapid test where it's not a PCR test, it's a probable case. You still go into the system for us to track, but it's not considered a confirmed case. So where we might have 12 cases last week, only 7 of them were confirmed positives. The other 5 were presumed to be positive. Or like if you go into your doctor's office and you get tested and you're positive, and then 3 days later your wife all of a sudden develops symptoms. They don't bring her into the office to get tested, they just presume her to be positive and she gets added to the list, but she's not a confirmed positive. So that may be some of the skewing you're referring to. I don't know, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. That's why I asked, I know you're doing contact tracing, number one.
No more, that stopped June 15th.
So you're relying on those DPH numbers as hard fact. There's no way to cross-check that.
Well, that's the only way we're getting the numbers, but we still see them every day, we just don't do any of the phone calls. Our nurse is doing them, and when she can't get to them, we send them to the CTC. And the CTC is right now 5 to 7 days to contacting people. We were doing contact tracing, but like I said, that stopped when COVID ended, so.
So when the state says we have positive cases, you're giving that person's name,
Yes.
so you know who these people are. I'm not obviously the one.
Well, they have to call, at that time, you were calling.
We were, yes.
So you would know, yeah.
But, and the town nurse also knows. What was happening before, and it stopped now, is the fire department would get the address where there was a positive case, but not the name, so they would know they had to wear the full PPE when they went into their house. But yeah, come on down.
I wanted to make one, not related to you, Mr. Pilling. Just for the public, so the public's aware, the pandemic, this was something that was raised and I wasn't able to respond to it online, but I just wanted to say here, the pandemic task force is not comprised of elected officials. It's just appointed people, it's the police chief, the fire chief.
No police chief.
Oh, there's no police, okay, but the fire chief is on it, right? Building commissioner, health agent. So these decisions are being made based on actual data, not like an elected officials, like, what are we doing here? There's none of that. I have nothing to do with it, you have nothing to do with it, you have nothing. We get the recommendation just like everybody else. So I did just want to point that out as well, which I think was a good decision when we formed the pandemic task force. And that's why I trust the recommendations you bring to us, because you are versed in the issues.
I'm not allowing public input at this time. This is a discussion that public input will be done again later in the meeting.
If I can, just one quick thing. There is a, the vaccine locations have kind of fizzled a little bit, but there is going to be a vaccine bus going to Taunton High School on August 24th, 25th, and 26th from 10 to 5 if anybody wants to go. So this is posted on the Board of Health website, and I believe it's going to be, or is already up on the main page.
Todd, I'm sorry, when did they, or did they stop the distribution of the vaccine at the Holiday Inn? When did that stop, or did it stop?
It did. It's phased out back in, I want to say, in May.
Okay, because the first I heard of the Vax Bus was somewhat recent, like last week or two. I'm like, what is that? I didn't know that the Holiday Inn was not a site anymore. Is that, the Vax Bus is the closest to?
No, there are still other locations.
Okay.
This one just happens to be very close, and it's meant to handle large quantities of people. You can still go to the local pharmacies and get it and that kind of stuff.
Can we make sure we announce that on the website? People, people can do with it what they want, but I think getting that, like, I didn't even know the Holiday Inn wasn't a site anymore. I'm sure there are other people. Because I'm already vaxxed, so I'm not like keeping up with what's going on, but that might be helpful for someone else.
Just for the record, I knew that. Thank you, Tim. So I will entertain a motion then.
Yep.
Recommendation.
Mr.
Your hands up.
No, it's not.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the pandemic task force recommendations as presented this evening.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Thank you, for that.
Thank you, sir.
Town Administrator. Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I just want, thank you, you just reminded me about that. Just a few things, we do, I believe, expect our library modular to be delivered, this week. We're making plans, we're having planning meetings with the library as well to make sure all the transitions, all the moving, that needs to take place, into the temporary modular, and into the lower conference room at Town Hall is planned. We also, are planning a meeting, with the library director, the library staff, the library board of trustees actually next week. So all of us are on the same page of all the expectations, how we're going forward, so we can all plan and be on the same page on that. I also, on a very related note, based on the fact that that at least a portion of the library will be occupying the lower conference room at town hall. We have begun a dialogue with the building commissioner, with the chairman of the board of selectmen, with the chief of police as well, to begin actually talking about the our meeting spaces and the fact that we have to, as we're taking a space away, we have to make sure we are working with everybody, working with the police as well, because they have a community room, that can be used for public meetings as well. So we began a conversation this morning about that. Actually this afternoon, have begun to involve the cable committee as well in the conversation. Obviously, as we plan forward with all this, in terms of meeting space, we want to make sure we have a streamlined meeting space process. So if there are public hearings, if there are any board meetings, we all have a process where we can follow.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
As we start these conversations? I have a little bit of a concern just because, for example, there used to be a lot more meeting space. So like planning board would have their meetings in their rooms, EDA was in that room that's about to be occupied by the library.
Yeah.
I think that we need to reach out to the other boards and committees. Some boards have public hearings, for example. I think those need to be priorities. Those should be held in person, whereas maybe on the Trails Committee, I don't know, the Finance Committee could do theirs on Zoom or something.
Well, we had that conversation today. We want to prioritize the meetings. For example, the zoning board of appeals you were on, I was on for 17 years. They can't go to the police station. They have people go to the meetings. And
then it needs to be recorded.
And that's one of the things we're going to be addressing at some point. This TV and the camera may be brought to the police station. We may be getting a bigger TV so that people like me can actually read the names over there. But with smaller groups like the Historic Commission and the Human Rights Committee, we don't have a lot of public input and stuff, so we may be the ones that going to be going to the police station. So, but we've had that conversation. The ZBA is going to have to change the day of their meetings because they meet the same time we meet over here, so they can't be over here and us at the same time. So that's something that needs to be discussed.
As a new kid on the block, some of these small committees especially, are we allowed to use private facilities to have a meeting?
I think it has to be like a public,
So that's a pavilion or hall, like a.
I'm okay with you looking into it, but I think it has to be a public building.
I can look into it. Yeah, I don't have the answer.
I'm just going off my gut. It's a public open meeting law, so I mean, having the meeting at Jim's house is probably not going to follow.
I wasn't saying someone's house, but I'm saying like.
No, yeah.
I think Lanny suggested his house.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like you could.
It's an option that we should absolutely.
The issues by so many different groups.
Yeah, they
The
usually.
pavilion you might be able to do the pavilion.
They usually non-profit, it's a possibility. I mean, the weather's going, even though we know it's going to be 90 degrees for the next few days, fall is coming.
Yeah.
So that won't be an option in a couple of months. But the library may be going down to the basement pretty quick, hopefully, pretty quick, the children's anyway, if that's where they're going to go. So that space is going to be gone. So we've already talked about plans, talked to the police chief, talked to Leanne as to how this is going to work, who notifies who when it's going to be a public meeting. So there's been a lot of thought on this, and we're moving right along. But I know a lot of nonprofits use the pavilion. I don't know if any town committees have used the pavilion, but something we can check into.
And then I did have one final thought. I feel like we always ask this, but I know that the COD coordinator had been involved before the actual modular was chosen and all that. Will they be involved, I assume, in just making sure everything is up to snuff, like once it's in and everything?
Yes.
I think we're waiting for it to be delivered, waiting for the ramp, assuming the ramp is by code and everything. I'm looking at Jen So I coordinate everything else, and at some point, I know the ADA coordinator will take a look at it and see how it's bathroom width of the doors and that kind of stuff is correct.
Thank you.
That's why, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Old business, review, discuss, and act on open of the special town meeting warrant. We have dates, we're gonna vote to open up the warrants today. Closing of the warrants will be September 9th. Review warrant draft and placement of articles by September 29th. Sign the final warrant on October 13th and posting the warrant articles on October 18th, 2021.
Question? Sure. So I remember we voted on it. I don't have the best memory, but we voted on this, and was it just to accept the schedule?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight we are voting to open the, okay, I understand.
So I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we open the special town meeting warrant as of today.
I second, yes.
Okay, all right, that's all. I got just a question for Tom, Mike Mullen. So we also vote on the closing date too then?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. May I withdraw my motion?
Yes,
Can you withdraw your second? See, I'm learning over here, so I can do that. Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna amend my original motion to state that we're gonna open the special town meeting warrant as of August 11th, 2021, and close the special town meeting warrant as of September 9th, 2021.
Second,
Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. The next agenda item is Selectmen's reports and comments. I'll just say briefly that the Human Rights Committee met last week, and it was regarding, each one they picked something to talk about, was on wellness, specifically for seniors and diabetes, and talked about all the benefits that the town provides, the state provides, and the federal government and the nonprofits provide for the seniors. It was very good talk, and next month, September, is Suicide Month, and we're going to be discussing suicides.
Okay.
And it's something that needs to be discussed. Any other Selectmen's reports?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Next agenda item is new business, review, discuss, and act on the appointment of highway department operator class 1 person. Mr. Frederick.
Good evening.
It was yours, Mr.
Okay. So as you know, we had a vacancy with Ray Rose retiring after many years of service. We thank him for that. Gentlemen, after reviewing all applications on file and conducting 3 interviews with our applicants, with our town administrator, I would like to recommend Richard Madonka from Taunton. Richard interviewed well and shows to have the most related experience to be a good fit to our department. This appointment would be pending on our pre-employment physical, drug and alcohol test, along with our background criteria.
Does the board have any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
If not, then entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we appoint Richard Mendonca as a highway department operator class 1, pending the successful completion of all the mentioned requirements. Do we need to mention, when will they be starting, Mr. Chairman?
A tentative start date is September 7th,
Okay,
after the holiday.
do I need to mention that in the motion? No?
No, I
Okay.
don't believe so.
No.
second,
Any discussion? Now, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next, agenda item.
Thank you.
Review, discuss, and act on the appointment of Janelle Whiting to the capital outlay committee.
And again, this is something that's filed.
Yes.
I was just gonna make.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Janelle Binding to the Capital Outlay Committee.
I'm gonna second that.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next agenda item is to appoint Norman Corsi to the Human Rights Committee. They took a vote at the meeting last week to interview him, and they voted to appoint him to the Human Rights Committee.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Review, discuss, and act. A review, discuss, and act on the appointment of Gloria Fox McDonald to the Baton Cultural Council.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next item is review, discuss, and act on the resignation of Frank Christopherly from the Conservation Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept with thanks and appreciation the resignation of Frank Christofouli from the Conservation Commission as an associate member.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Review, discuss, and act on a request from the harbor master to hire a new assistant harbor master. So he had somebody left, I think it was maybe the end of July, Mr. Duffy maybe.
Yes,
And
correct.
he's more in office, he wants to have somebody, obviously.
Mhm.
Entertain a motion.
Well, yeah, so what he's saying is he doesn't have anyone right now
Right,
in mind, but that he wants us
you
to
don't want to lose that position.
correct. And I'm happy to make the motion that we allow the position to remain established yet vacant until such time that Mr. Marino can find a suitable replacement.
Is there a second?
That's a pretty good motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Marino.
The next agenda item is to vote to appoint chair of the Stormwater Committee as signatory for the MS4 annual report.
Selectman Goulart? Did you have anything to say about this?
Because I really want this.
Opposed to this?
Who are you competing with for this ride?
Everybody stand up that wants this job. I attended a stormwater meeting by Zoom last week that the EPA conducted. And one of the subjects covered was the MS4, and that page that we were given is the signature page. It's the last page of the MS4, the annual report. And Newton Tedder from the EPA said, very important, if you haven't done it already, and I've never heard this before, you need to have your board or your mayor, council, whatever your form of government is, to vote to designate somebody to sign the MS4, because that's the person who's gonna get the phone call or the emails or anything else relative to what's in that report. So in the past, we've had the chairman of the board of selectmen, but that was because we were the board of health. Then we had the chairman of the board of health, and I think that, since I came back, I've been signing them. But when he said there should be an official vote on record, and he said we don't have to submit it, but we should have it in our stormwater management plan notebook. So that's why I sent that in, and I'm volunteering.
Okay. And I would assume the Board of Health wants this because
We're a subcommittee of
And
the
you are,
board of
like,
health, yes.
actually doing this.
And they actually are represented on that stormwater committee.
Mhm. I have no questions,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Selectman Gould.
That's it, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we appoint Chairman Selectman Goulart of the Stormwater Committee to be a signatory for the MS4 annual report. Second.
Yes.
Chairman, point of order, just appoint the chairman of the stormwater committee,
Okay,
not the
yes.
name,
Not specific.
If we
so
could
that
start
we can
that.
continue on.
Yes, and Selectman Goulart, you made me think of a second question. Will the Board of Selectmen have to do this every year?
No, my understanding is you would only do it if down the road you decide to change that designation.
Thank you.
I second. So we're not putting her name on the.
Yes, no, we're gonna strike that from the record. I imagine my motion with that.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Review, discuss, and act on the survey and planning grant contract between the town of Baton and the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Does everybody have an opportunity to review the contract and?
Yes.
Chairman of the Historical Commission.
Thanks for being patient.
My second name. Basically, I can talk to the scope of work that's in the contract. That is the same scope of work that was in the original application and also in the request for quotes that went out that closed today. In the scope of work, it just explains the tasks, the projects that will be done for each phase. There's 4 phases, and the due dates for it that the preservation consultant will do. That scope of work also becomes part of the contract that will make the selected consultant hire.
I think this is fantastic, and I really want to thank the Historical Commission for really taking the initiative on this, especially you, Mrs. Scales. I know we, in the beginning stages, before we were blessed with Town Administrator Mullen, we were communicating on this and working together on it, and I'm really glad to see it's all happened exactly as you guys all planned. So
Yeah,
thank you
it's
very
really
much.
an exciting project for us. It'll really help our historical landscape. A lot of positive things can come from it.
Absolutely. And I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? I don't have any questions. So we should be voting on this contract, so.
We're gonna vote, my understanding is to vote to authorize you, Mr. Chairman, to sign and date the cover page on both copies of the contract. Accepting motion?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we authorize Chairman Ken Pacheco to sign and date the cover page on both copies of the contract as presented this evening.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next item,
Oh,
please.
I have. Items for you to
She's
sign.
not leaving without the signature, what did you
Oh, you
think?
got that right, Brett.
We're not dealing with a novice here.
Both copies will go back up to the Mass Historical Commission. I'll make sure we have a copy of the signature page, and then they'll mail one back to us after they sign it.
Good work, everyone.
Thank you.
only one signature.
Yep. Okay, thanks. I appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Right.
Very nice. Kudos.
Next agenda item is review, discuss, and act discussion of the flag bylaw committee. I didn't think we were actually thinking about voting on this. I thought we were gonna have a discussion to see where we.
We do that with every agenda item. You can either review it, discuss it.
Yes. So what we talked about has been brought up at several meetings. We're gonna form a flag bylaw committee. And they will present something back to the board, and then we're still trying to find out what the mechanics are as far as getting it on the ballot. We haven't got a response yet from our attorney. But we need to talk about the numbers of people that we want on the committee. And I personally would like a balanced committee, people with different views, because I do want to have something presented to the voters, and I want them to be able to vote on something. Not vote on no flag policy, but vote on something, and let them decide which way we want to go. We will not be ready for a special town meeting to vote to put it on the ballot. Most likely at the end, more people, the president.
Can I ask you a question?
Is that the question you want to ask?
No.
We have 2 questions?
Yeah, correct. I'm gonna take 2 questions. No, in all seriousness, I agree, it should be balanced. My only question, I guess, to the board is, and you mentioned this, is how many members do we want? And I have seen, committees, I've been on committees with 7 members, hard. I've been on committees with 9, harder. My personal opinion is 5 people, but it is what it is. I also wanted to say and clarify, you made a comment just now where you said there has to be something. What you're saying is, you as us, or as the Board of Selectmen, should not accept that the committee doesn't come up with something. Okay.
Yeah,
That has happened though in committees.
They may come up with something that we don't agree with, but that's, you know, that's, they're gonna come up with a flag policy.
But I want you to also remember when we were on the Van Guysen Hall Study Committee, we ended up producing a report that recommended that the building be sold, because there was a lot of work that needed to be done on it. And at the time, the Board of Selectmen, as I recall, did not want to sell it. So I just want us to understand that sometimes you create committees that recommend things. And I'm not saying I'm gonna agree with whatever they come up with, but we have to be realistic that something may not come back to whatever the individual selectman thinks they should do. So I know we all know that, more saying that to the
Yeah, and your comment about the numbers, I was thinking 5 or 7.
I like some, but I do have a question when we were talking about the schedule. if it goes on the annual town meeting, that's usually held in May. Our town election's held in April. So you put it off for another year, is that what you're saying?
I don't think he's saying he wants to put it up. I think he's saying that the committee, there's no way the committee can get up and running and have a bylaw, or it'll be a bylaw, ready for the special town meeting before it can go to the annual town election 2022 ballot. So all he's saying is the earliest, and actually, I think Colonel Perry said this too, he didn't expect that they could have it. That's why we had the question, can't you go to the ballot without first going to the town meeting? My personal opinion is I've never seen that happen. I'm also not an attorney, which is why we're asking town council for that. But all you're saying is, just based on the timing, this is the earliest it could happen.
And there was discussion also about possibly putting it on the 2022 ballot, which is the congressional setting as a possibility, but we didn't know if that was an option. This is why we're checking into it. We want to, whatever happens, we want to make sure it's legal and proper and all of that.
So that the people that come out to vote on it, their time was not like wasted finding out the language or whatever is not legal or whatever. So.
It might be reference to a balance committee, so say we decide on 7 members. Doesn't mean the first 7 applicants for it get put on. We want a balance, we want different views. We're not going to be on, we have our views, obviously. They have to be pretty public, so we want independent people to look at the whole picture. So I guess we could decide.
We can.
Decide one.
Are you talking about an equal balance?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, if we have an odd number, hopefully we're gonna get some people that are very independent. Don't have taken a position either way on the flag policy, and those people can be on it.
We can only do the best we, I mean.
I don't know any of those people.
I'm sure there's some out there.
I don't think so.
One more.
Well, anyway.
You got the job, Dave.
Yes.
How are we going to determine who, is it going to be up to the 3 of us that will interview the candidates?
Well, we will appoint the candidates, and we'll see their resume or whatever they send us the volunteer form.
You know what we could do? You know what I think is a better idea than a resume? That isn't. I don't think you need to do a resume because like, I would be willing to take anyone from any walk.
Could we stop the discussion?
I don't need to know that you got a degree, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just want, I want a diverse experience in terms of opinion of thought, okay? I almost think that we, instead of a resume, we should do a cover, like the cover letter. Why do you want to be on the committee? Just like a few sentences.
Right, and they don't have to, yeah, and they don't have to state their position on it.
Correct, no.
On the flag policy, but just
They can if they want to.
can, but it's probably not a good idea.
So you want to do that letter based on almost like a why I should be.
Yeah, oh boy, why are you even interested? Because that's more, to me personally, as the appointing authority, as one of the appointing authorities, that's more interesting to me than where you went to college or where you've been working the last bit. Like, that matters, I guess, but I really am curious to know why people want to do it. Like, why would you want to be on this independent pilot committee? Why is this issue important to you? Those are the things that are important to me, but I'll respect, of course, whatever the board decides.
Yeah, I think that question, isn't that question part of the, when somebody applies for volunteers for a
It's been a
committee?
long time since I filled those out, but it's possible.
I believe so, gentlemen, speaking, yes.
Good point.
So can we have a consensus as to the number of people we want?
I like 7.
I don't mind 7, I just, sometimes it's tough, like, to have meetings, like CPA has, well, their meetings, that's a bad example, their meetings, they're always on the same place, but I just think 7 can be tough. Like, I've been on committees with 7, and most, quorum you can get, but like, never was there actually all 7 people there. I feel like there was always someone who could just, by chance, couldn't make it, it's just 7 people. I'm not gonna die on the hill over 7 or 5, I mean, we just needs to be an odd number. And 9 is too many, so. And 3 is probably too little, so I feel like what we're choosing between is 5 and 7.
So I'm gonna lean towards 7.
I'm okay with that.
So, but we also have to come up with some kind of a mission statement, something that they need to know what they're doing.
Well, it needs to be very clear, because we have had committees who have reached out to us and said, we weren't really sure what we were supposed to be doing. So yeah, we want to be very precise. Maybe we could do that next.
Yeah, I was looking at, Mike, but maybe we put it on the agenda for next week.
Yes.
That we can, sort of like a mission statement, but also you seem to agree on 7 committee members.
So yes, and if I could, hopefully by that time, we will have some guidance and feedback back from our council as well. And I think one of the things in the charge in the scope of the committee would be deadlines. If, for example, we are able to move forward with a ballot process, then we have to follow the annual town election ballot deadline process where to get that language on the ballot. So that would put us at, generally, I believe, for an April election, the end of February, having that ready by the end of February, ready to go.
I feel like their first order of business should be to come up with their schedule. Like, we can inform them what we hear from town council, here's what's possible, like, this is when we need it on the ballot, okay? But they should let us know what they plan to do, like, what the pace of their work basically is gonna be. Like, how are we gonna meet that goal? Because we've had committees like the open space committee where it got defunct and we didn't have a quorum, and then it took, literally, I went through the box last night. That project started in 2013. We finished it in 2021. It took 7 years. We already had one from 2003, so this is the revised version of it. That's why.
So hopefully we hear from town council by the next meeting, we can have a good discussion and vote on correspondence.
Wait, did we take the vote? We finished the vote?
We're not taking a vote, we're gonna wait.
Okay, we'll wait for
We're gonna
vote.
wait till next week to see. I mean, say it doesn't have to go to a town meeting, it just go right up to the ballot. Next April would be.
We might have more clarification.
Yeah, with some hope.
The schedule would be good, because if they can do it like in November, that's even earlier. So they're gonna really have to have it together to get something there. So anyway, I agree, we can do it.
We're closing the special town meeting warrants on September 9th. We're gonna meet next week, we're not meeting until, I believe, it's September 15th. So we're gonna be meeting after that, so the committee won't even be formed at that point.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think that.
So the next item on the agenda is correspondence. We received 2 emails from Jan Dukowski. One is a resignation from the Human Rights Committee, and the other is a resignation from the Commission on Disabilities. She was appointed to the Finance Committee, and she's not allowed to be on any other committees. So I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the resignation of Jennifer Dukowski from the Human Rights Committee with sincere appreciation for her efforts.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Any motion regarding the Commission on Disability?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept with thanks and appreciation the resignation of Jennifer Dukowski from the Commission on Disabilities.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Any acknowledgements, I will be allowed. Minutes. I'm going to entertain a motion to continue to table the minutes for March 30th, 2020, when we're not ready.
Okay.
To review.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Just so you know, Karen Brady is on vacation this week, and she was working on these minutes today.
I'm glad you didn't stay to get it done. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I motion.
Dedicated to
Always. I motion that we approve, Mr. Chairman, the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2021.
Second. I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yes. It's happened twice now. And the first time I alluded to it, I was going to talk about it. The second time happened 5 minutes before the start of the meeting. I get put in front of me the minutes to be signed. If I really have the time to go through those minutes, 5 minutes before the start of the meeting is not professional, and it does not give me adequate time to review them. I missed that of the June 16th meeting. And I said I was going to serve notice that I would like to amend those minutes, because in one particular section, it does not accurately reflect what was said by a member of this board. I spoke to Mr. Mullen today. I was advised I had to give notice if I wanted to amend it. I also am aware that under Robert's Rules of Order, I could make a motion for reconsideration of that vote that was taken in those minutes. What I'm not quite sure is if there are other ways, based upon the fact that those meetings are recorded virtually, YouTube, or the actual transcript of that meeting could be admitted into the record rather than redoing this vote. I say that as a question. If that's not doable, then I will ask at the next meeting that this be placed on the agenda to amend the minutes of the June 16th meeting.
So regarding the June 23rd, which is what actually going to be voted on, discussed. Those were given to us yesterday by email, those minutes. I reviewed them. Dr. Z, did you get to review?
But this is approval, we already accepted them for review, we should have already had them.
Well, I know I got it yesterday, email, and I reviewed the minutes today, so I'd be prepared if I had any. Ask Mrs. Goulart is here in the past, as you know, if she had any concerns about the minutes, she would notify our executive assistant.
During the review, like during that period, before it comes back to the board for approval, those changes would or would not be made by the administrative team.
So we're given a copy of the minutes. If somebody wants to change it, as you know, many times I would ask, have the minutes been changed since we received a copy? And sometimes Mrs. Goulart brought up a good point, and they were changed.
Yes. The only thing I wanted to say is, because I actually don't know specifically what you're talking about, because you're talking sort of vaguely, but I did just want to say.
I was informed that I had to wait until the next meeting to get it.
Okay, no, I understand. All I wanted to say in general was just, you had said that the meeting minutes don't reflect what was actually said at the meeting, and all I wanted to say is that the minutes are not a transcript, they're a summary of what happened. It's not supposed to be a word for word verbatim. Again, I don't know.
No,
like,
I
exactly
appreciate
what
that.
you're reading.
I appreciate that clarification.
But I will say, Selectman Goulart, there have been times where, and we've discussed this at meetings, or at least alluded to it, where I've asked you, because the meeting, we all understand, the meeting minutes are the official record of the meeting, okay? But we put our meetings on YouTube, and we have Channel 9 that plays the recordings, and I thought you had said, and I wanted to say it to you directly in case I'm incorrect, didn't you say one time to me that if worse came to worse, I'm paraphrasing, and there were a legality issue, that the court would look at the actual meeting if there was some sort of discrepancy?
It's usually what happens is, for example, let's say there was a case and certain selected records minutes were required. They would also ask to see the tape. It's the written word that is the first thing that comes to mind. By the same token, if there is an error made in the written record and it is discovered after they've been accepted, they can be amended. But what you do is you write the what is to be amended so that the other board members can look at that and actually see what got accepted. That's how you do it. And you might not even have all been on the board at the same time. Obviously in June you were. Just if one occurred back in March or something, when I was on the board, down the road, you found an error and said, wait a minute, that isn't what we agreed to do. You check the tape and say, you know what, there's a misunderstanding. When the minutes were written, this is actually what we did. So at that point, you would correct it, and you would cross-reference the minutes so that if in fact, any time down the road, the minutes were requested, there would be a reference to the amendment that was made at a later date. So again, it wouldn't have to even be the same members, as long as you could show this is exactly what the tape said. This is what the minutes said that got approved. Now, when you see the tape and you see this, the guy's an error, so let's just correct it. You can't do that, okay?
And please, I'm asking this, I'm not doing it to create big elbow. I just want it to be on record as to what it was said. Now, my question was, if the minutes, especially in light of the fact that we summarize what goes on at the meetings, and that, to me, is somewhat dangerous, because they can be admitted in other instances into court as official legal documents. A summary of what a person says may not accurately reflect everything that the person said. And can a transcript be added to the summary?
No. If you're going to dispute minutes, a section of minutes, all right, that ends up in a vote or a discussion, first of all, the only thing you're required to do is to record the votes. Right? If you summarize discussion, it does not have to be verbatim, because we don't do verbatim minutes. And that would,
That would be a nightmare, by the way.
when I came back to the board in 15, there was boards doing that, the first thing I said was forget that.
I remember that for.
Yes. So, again, let's assume you had to go back and look at some minutes. And they've already been proved. Because there's something going on that those minutes are required, and you look at it and say, I don't remember that happening. So you go to the tape, and you listen to the tape, and you say, I knew the vote was not correct when I looked at it because of what was said. What you would do is summarize what you heard on the tape, not verbatim. Mr. So-and-so said such and such, and Mr. So-and-so said such, and there was discussion. And during the discussion, there was consensus of the board, whatever, and then there's a vote.
Yeah.
Okay? If the vote that is taken reflects what is on the tape, you're all set. If the vote as recorded is not reflected in the minutes, what you do is summarize what was on the tape, bring it to the board, and say, I think we need to look at this, and certainly the other board members can look at the tape and say, here's a summary of what happened, and that made sense according to the vote that was taken. But what actually ended up in the minutes, this is not clearly what was going on, so we need to amend. So that discussion that you have summarized and brought to the board, if the board agrees, it's obviously there's a misinterpretation here. They would vote to amend the minutes of whatever the date is and reference the summary that was prepared based on the tape. And that would go into the minutes. And the original minutes would have a note that said, see Selectmen's meeting of whatever the date was for amendment. So that you can follow it. But no, nobody does verbatim.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? So, because again, I don't exactly know, because I know it's not on the agenda, I just know how things work, but what Selectman Goulart is alluding to is that often these discrepancies occur because of a vote. So was this discrepancy we're talking about a vote? Okay, so then it wouldn't be like a court thing, there would be no transcript.
If in fact, all you're talking about is discussion summarized in the minutes that don't factually reflect what was really said, then you can still do the same thing. Do the summary and say, this is what the tape said, this is what the minutes say. They're not actual, you can't even put them together, okay? Yes, but you're not gonna write pages and pages of discussion. The whole point of the minutes is, and, especially since you now have electronic copies, you can go back and look, whereas in the old days, whatever got voted, even if it was wrong, later you found out it was wrong, it's too late, but at least you have a way of verifying that now. It wouldn't have to be necessarily legal action. Any citizen, anyone who requests those public records could look at them and go and do the same thing. The other thing too is, June 16th, were we still doing Zoom? Because another thing is, could the person who was doing the recording of minutes, meaning taking the minutes to type them up, if we were doing Zoom, maybe they couldn't hear. So, again, if there is that much of a variance, anyone in the public can look at the minutes of a given meeting and match them to the recorded meeting and come in and say, Board of Selectmen, I think you got a problem. When this meeting was held, the tape says this, the minutes say this, you need to look at this because this is not factual. This is what really happened, okay? But again, it's up to the board to look at what is now the summary of the video and what is actually in the minutes to make a decision whether or not they're going to actually do the amendment.
So we are very lucky when Selectman Goulart was on the board to serve with me. You would take the time, in all fairness, you would do a lot of the motions. And so I know why you wanted to go through the minutes, because you wanted to make sure that the minutes reflected the correct motion that you had made at the meeting. If you, now coming back to this issue, if you want to amend the minutes, the way that Selectman Goulart, I'm just going to describe the process, did it, was she would handy red pen, she would mark it up, and she would give it back to the executive assistant. That became part of the minutes. So you could see what was edited. But I will say this, and I know why you did it, and please, I'm not saying this about you at all. I have a concern, since we have a perception that things maybe aren't as transparent as they should be. I don't think it solves the problem by having members of the Board of Selectmen editing their own minutes. I like the process, because I will say, I have really never, ever asked for changes to the minutes since I've been on the board. Because I trusted Selectman, she did a great job. But I have never asked one of the administrative assistants to change the minutes, simply because this is just my personal thought. I feel like that's inappropriate. Why should I dictate what the minutes say? The minutes are done by the administrator.
My impression, what I was told, was that I couldn't do, I could recommend it had to be done.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate, yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, even just the selection, and again, I'm just talking about the perception, not saying anyone ever did anything wrong. Some people certainly did not, but it's just the perception. Like, does everyone want me editing the minutes? No, of course not, because my votes and my statements are also in there. So it's better to have a third party do it, not talk about it, not communicate. I trust that Mrs. Brady and Mrs. Kerwin are doing it accurately. So again, I'm just talking about how I have comported myself. Again, Selectman Goulart served this town very well, and she only did it because she wanted to make sure that the minutes reflected the correct motions and votes in case the illegality were really an issue like that. So again, those are just my 2 cents.
As I take exception, as members of the Board of Selectmen, I don't care what board you're on in this town or what committee you're appointed to, you have an obligation to make sure the minutes of your meetings are correct and accurate. I read all the stormwater minutes, okay? And sometimes I'll go to our assistant and say, run it, we're out in the field at times, so there's nobody taping or anything else, and that's why she has to go and takes names and all these things that she has to do when we're on the road, so to speak. But you are obligated to look at those minutes. It is not an attempt to intimidate anybody or to make anyone embarrassed because of anything else. I did for 20-some years, I did school committee meetings. Every single Tuesday night, I was in a different town. And quite often, the boards that employed me, Berkeley Diagonal Regional, they would start to make the motion and say, we finish it. And I'd say, is this what you want to say? Yes, okay, I'll take care of it. Okay, I had very few changes and they were minor. What I'm saying to you, in the course of discussion and everything else, and we've had Zoom meetings and everything else, and I have no idea what was on the meeting of the 16th. Every member of every board and every committee is required to take meetings. You're supposed to vote to accept them. You better read them and you better make sure they're right. I read the drafts that come from the person who does our minutes. And they go out to the board before the meeting, the committee, stormwater committee, before the meeting. I expect anyone who reads those to say, where did that come from? I don't remember that. And to either get back to her or me so that we can figure this out. Did I misunderstand that? Or what was the agreement? So, yes, you are obligated. I'm sorry. It's not that you're being critical of anybody. We have an obligation to vote to say, to the best of our knowledge, these minutes are accurate and correct. Find an error, obligated to correct it.
Thank you. And I want to thank Alan for explaining to me the process. One of the things that relieves some fears that some people may have of perception is that it is still a learning process for me. And this discussion has been very helpful. That's another reason why it's not
And I don't want you to leave this conversation by thinking that there have been times that Selectman Goulart has been correct and changed something that was inaccurate. I happily voted for it. So I don't want you to think that again, just only speaking for myself, I read the minutes. If I see something that I think is not accurate, I simply ask someone to look. Can you please check this again? But I just don't do it myself.
I've done it, not as much as Mrs. Goulart, but I've done it in the past when I think there's been an error. I've asked the entire Leanne to take a look at the minutes. I think Lenny made the motion and not Brett, or we voted aye and they put no. Those kind of corrections, I've done that in the past. And when Mrs. Goulart, as you mentioned, the red pen, we will look at those minutes before we actually vote on it to see what the changes are. Normally, in most cases, she was correct, so we were okay with it, and we approved the minutes as that. I would just suggest, though, that if you have any concerns about the minutes, I know we're gonna vote on the 23rd, but on the 16th, that the colleagues know what those concerns are before the meeting, so that we can review.
I think.
You can call me out of order if you want, but that meeting, the words that you said were the most disrespectful.
You know what was disrespectful? You bringing in a Confederate flag into this chamber here.
Yeah, I was trying to make a point.
Yeah, that was a
Thanks
good point.
to you, sir.
Who
Thank you.
owns a Confederate
Thanks
flag?
to you. I've
And
been
you
going
are
to these meetings
you
for
are
25
our
years, sir.
You
For
are
25 years, I've never heard a selectman disrespect that flag of the United States the way you did. You should be ashamed of
You
yourself.
don't want to be ashamed of yourself because you're misquoting me and you do it all the time.
No, I didn't
And the other
misquote
day,
you.
You
I
actually.
got it right here in the tape. You want to hear it?
No, I don't want to
You
hear it.
want, no, of course you don't want
because
to
I've
hear it.
seen it. I've seen the tape.
Right, I've
Okay?
seen it too.
Yeah, but you think that
You
I
should be
actually
ashamed of
but you
yourself.
think that I doctored that tape. That's how stupid you are. Okay?
Yeah, oh, you want to call me stupid?
I want to call you stupid.
Come on out here,
That's an
call me
ignorant,
stupid.
no, yeah, that's a good threat. You're a good
Right.
man. You're a good man. Yeah, good
Yeah. You should be ashamed of yourself.
You want to be ashamed of yourself
Yeah.
for putting phony stuff on Facebook.
I did not put it there.
Oh, you didn't post that Kenny Pacheco have the cable committee or himself edit the,
No, I didn't.
oh, you didn't?
No.
No, what I saw was Robin Woods.
Right.
But anyway, Mrs. Goulart, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to say one other thing, when it comes to the stormwater committee, you gotta understand, I'm the chairman, but I'm under duress. Because those minutes are signed by the chairman and the clerk, and he happens to be sitting here tonight, I won't name him, in short pants. And he wants to make sure they're accurate, so I just let you know that, there's a second pair of eyes, okay?
There's a few people wearing shorts.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I'm not on that committee.
Excuse me. Please, let's let the house speak.
We could not just set for both. Both lines. That I could serve notice, generate a discussion. Be informed. And to take that discussion to my colleagues. I cannot have a discussion with you because of the open meeting law, the way I would like. I have to do it in a meeting according to a procedure. I met with Mr. Mullen today and he explained that to me, and that's what I'm doing.
It's totally valid. I should have said this, and I apologize. Specifically about June 16th, the procedure would be, before the next meeting, whoever would make the edits, it would be circulated to the board before, just like in the packet, and then that's it, and then it's a discussion. So I hope you didn't leave this discussion thinking that I wouldn't even look at it.
No.
I wanted us to all understand what the process was and what it's been.
Being new, I didn't know the process to me. I wanted it on this agenda, and I was told I couldn't. I wasn't told that by either one of you. Told that by the town administrator, who I consider a neutral, non-political entity, works for us. Honey, this is the way you do things. So I'm doing it that way.
Thank you.
So we still have a motion and a second on the June 23rd. Do you have a say about those?
Are we all okay to vote on this?
Yes.
June 23rd? Okay.
We already had the motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Except for review the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes for July 14th, 2020.
So,
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Approval of the warrants.
this is the passing of the baton right here, so I can move on. Warrants dated August 4th, 2021. 5A-22 in the amount of $127,308.49. 5B-22, $428,784.83.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the warrants, the following warrants, all dated August 11th, 2021, as follows. 6A-22 in the amount of $130,813.12. 6B-22 in the amount of $61,193.59. And 6C-22 in the amount of $72,337.50.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Public input. Just give me your name and address, please.
Who are you? What say you?
Laura Madera, 1645 Maple. I just have a question about the Sweet Knolls Park, because from what I understand, it is a state park, but it's also obviously in the town of Dayton. I bring my dog there all the time. I hire a dog walker, she brings my dog there all the time. And I know it kind of sparked my memory when you were bringing up the announcements, and that we have the leash law, there's signs everywhere about having your dog on a leash. Unfortunately, my dog walker came to a situation where another dog was off a leash and the owner yelled to my dog walker that the dog will bite your dog, you need to run. So she distracted her dog, my dog walker ran as fast as she could with my dog. Luckily, everyone was safe.
Yeah.
She did contact Stacy Ferry, and I believe she also contacted the deputy too. I just don't know if there's any way, or what the process would really be to monitor it, and I don't know if it's something that the town would do, or if that's more of, because it's a state park, I don't know where responsibility would really lie.
I believe it's a state park, as you noted.
Right.
But I also thought dogs weren't allowed in that. Is that?
They have signs that you just need to leash your dog and pick up your dog.
Yes.
There's trails, you can walk them.
So you probably.
Is that an ACO issue? Like,
I don't think it's ACR, the state would be.
They would be, so I just wanted to try to contact somebody else too, because I just don't know if there's, I mean, of course, obviously we've mentioned it to people and it's obviously aware, but I've gone back and I've seen the same person with their dog on leash, so I don't like, of course, me saying something doesn't, I just don't know how else, and I like that you bring it up in the announcements, I think that's very important. I've posted things on Facebook, on the town, you know, you're from Dayton pages, I just don't know if it's like, I don't know how else to make it more like.
Who has the question is, I mean, you're bringing tonight, who has jurisdiction? Is it the, well, here's the thing, isn't the ACO also the state designated animal inspector, so wouldn't it be, like, who would we call for an issue where there's a dog on technically a state park in the town of Dayton? And maybe we don't have this answer tonight, but we can certainly get back to you.
follow up with DCI.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was just out of curiosity wondering how to really go about it, to
Yeah.
obviously avoid something from happening.
Of course.
If
Well,
there
we
is a
have-
vicious dog off a leash, that's a
we have-
major concern, because kids walk other people's dogs, humans, anybody, you know? It's just something that made me nervous, and I wanted to bring it up and see where we could go with it.
Well, as you know,
State park, you call the state police.
No. DCR, I agree, and possibly, environmental police. Environmental
I have the
police
answer.
respond.
MSPCA, thank you, Mrs. Berry.
Thank you, Mrs. Ferry.
Why? She's stuck, she hung in there with us.
Well, I've actually spoke with her on this side too, so that's very helpful, but,
And also in reference to DCR, the Freetown headquarters oversees our state law.
That's very cool. But again, part of the reason we put it on there, was because, of like a dog on dog attack. So we just wanna make sure that everybody is respecting the bylaws and respecting each other.
I know it's very important, so I appreciate
And
it.
thank you for letting us know, because how else would we know, like, you know,
Right,
people don't tell us, so thank you.
appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
Are we gonna follow up with that? Just wanted to ask about this.
Yeah, I can follow up with them to DCI, like in DCI, like, and make sure they know that there is,
We've had complaints
Yes.
about.
absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah, is there anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak public input?
Mrs. Mello?
Nope, no, thank you.
Thank you. Chuck?
I'm all set. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Is there anybody else here, public input, Mr. Rosa?
I need to state my name and address again.
I think we got it.
No, just kidding. All right, so, I did want to speak just for a brief moment on the issue of record and changing the record. And the, who makes, who votes on what and how that, obviously you make a motion. So what motions are made, these are the things that have political ramifications, obviously for the members of the Board of Selectmen and for members of the committees as well. So, it's, you know, so that's, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, but
Hey,
I
that's
think
my
that would be the fine point of concern. And if I come to the defense of somebody who makes an emotional remark that they may want to reconsider after the fact, then I should be willing to come to the aid of those who make emotional remarks that that I disagree with for whatever reason. So I think emotional remarks are less pertinent. They may be pertinent in many respects, but I think in terms of, not completely, but in terms of legal consequence, or they would be less pertinent.
Yeah.
That would be my casual, non-lawyer assessment, although we all should guard against emotional. I would recommend anyone in elected position, including myself, that you guard against emotional responses. It probably won't serve you well, and it probably is not really what you intended to say. In a quiet moment, you reflect on it, think, damn, I shouldn't have said that. So, to go to your point about what is of concern, it's the political ramifications of making motions and voting on things. The emotional outbursts, unfortunately, those of us who make them will have to spend our time on the cross for. So,
Can I
that analogy. Your advice is well taken. All right, gentlemen, have a good night. Thank you.
While you're here, can I ask you something?
Yes, please.
And I'm not, we disagree, we've agreed, Dave. It is what it is, right? And I will always talk to you when I see you.
I think in public, I try to be, in terms of official events, I try to be respectful.
Absolutely.
And I hope I've accomplished that to some degree.
So please don't take offense to what I'm
No, go
about to
ahead.
tell you. I was a little disturbed by what you said to our building commissioner earlier, and you have every right to, so please know that what I'm telling you right now is not what you can and cannot say at a public meeting.
Yeah.
I think the courteous thing to do was not make a spectacle at a public meeting, and you could have simply sent an email. So, and I'm not trying to make an issue out of it, because you didn't say that you were offended, we didn't have a conversation, it just happened. But I think that if the intent, you never want to make someone feel embarrassed, because that person it's the wrong reaction. That person isn't going to want to go and take that recommendation or whatever it is. So I would just hope that if someone, not you now, just talking generally, if someone has like a recommendation for a town employee, could you not come to a meeting and make like a big spectacle? You can simply send an email and we will be sure that your issue is addressed. No,
Some of our emotional outbursts are calculated, so. So, perhaps.
But I would appreciate the courtesy going forward.
Perhaps what I should have done, decorum in mind, is ask the chairman if he and the board of selectmen would take it under advisement to encourage whomever, regardless of the situation, to if there is a situation that develops where it's becoming a bit of an impediment to, or somehow or another, trouble to other groups of the town, to redouble their efforts to resolve the matter. So perhaps I should have asked the board to ask the person involved if they would make changes. Maybe that was the appropriate way to do it. So I'm not gonna chase that point because I think I pressed that button already and maybe with a little too much vigor.
I think so, but we still love you.
But, thank you. Thank you for your service.
And I didn't mean to, I doubt you even felt, I would have felt some type of way if it had been me, so I just felt like it was appropriate to say it. I will also say, going forward, and this isn't for you, Dave, but you can stay for it. Going forward, if we could please stop the incessant spreading of misinformation on Facebook. If you have a question about something on the agenda, rather than rolling over in your bed and typing something on Facebook that's untrue, if you could just go ahead and give Town Hall a call, 508-669-6431. We'll be sure to get you the accurate information, okay? Thank you.
Any other public?
Can I just publicly say, Deputy Cable Committee does need help, so
Yes.
if anybody's interested, please apply, talk to Board of Selectmen, email us, we need help.
Absolutely. And we will be sure that's on the announcements going forward.
The cable committee, they're all the members who work doing what you do, or they do administrative, all
We all do everything, we'll do this, and we're administrative, sometimes, there's only 3 of us technically on the board right now, we all 3 usually can't be here at the same time. So it just makes things very challenging, and we need help. Please.
So can I ask you one question, not to belabor the point? And maybe I'm incorrect. There was a general volunteer who asked to be appointed as a general volunteer, Ron Smith. And I know he had helped out a couple of years ago, and I just wasn't sure if he's like still available for you guys, or.
I came on this board, I believe, June of 2017. Ron left in July of that year, and although he's been appointed, I have not seen him
Okay,
since.
so it's not helpful, because now I'm thinking we have 4 people when in reality, okay. So we will make
The
sure.
last members we had were Max Cowell and
Okay.
Julia.
Oh. Yeah.
And they've been gone for probably a year and a half.
Is there any way that we could spotlight them either at the next meeting? I don't know if you have time, or the meeting after that?
Well, we did one 2 meetings ago, I believe it
Oh, you
was
did?
3, but yeah,
Well, it
I had
didn't
to
help,
zoom
no.
into it.
We didn't get any more
But it
volunteers.
didn't, so that's why I'm hoping.
Okay, if we could, the reason I'm making, no committee vacancy is more important than any other, so please know I'm not picking winners and losers here, but we won't have a Channel 9 operation if we don't have the capable hands. So we could go ahead and get this under announcements.
That would be very appreciated. A lot of our assignments come up in June, is when some of us end, and I wanna make sure, obviously, we don't leave the town with nobody filling it.
Exactly.
Because I know people like to watch the meetings, they rely on it, everyone here has been watching the meetings,
Correct.
they obviously
important.
prefer to physically see it on YouTube or on Channel 9. I don't want people to have to rely on minutes because there's nobody here. If you're listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw Mrs. Goulart's hand raised, so she might be volunteering.
My fellow committee person with short pants who remains unnamed that signs the minutes got a big smirk on his face. No, that isn't gonna happen. But I'm thinking of,
Yeah,
when
is it me or?
people, way back when, in the early stages, they contacted Boston University, who was a student living in town who was in the program, and he came to town, served as an intern, and I know Ms. Oldie and, who else told me about what a great job he did. So maybe we need to reach out to the colleges and universities to see that if they have students who are willing to come in, they come in trained. So they're not coming in reading to learn, they're coming in for hands-on because they already know a certain amount of thing. I think he teaches at BU now, but he doesn't live in town anymore, but it's a thought. They're gonna be looking for internships, I would think.
We reached out to the high school, I started making training documents because I was thinking if we end up leaving, having somebody just touch this, they won't know what to do, so I started making training documents to hopefully ease in anybody who does get it interested, please. It's not as scary as it looks or sounds.
This student, because that was what his major was, he actually came in and helped set things up, because he was already trained, he had that background. And we made our will with other interns in other departments for other kinds of work, so maybe there's somebody out there.
When I first joined Selectmen, we had this question, and there had been some kind of an internship, I won't call it a program, but it was a partnership where people from Bridgewater would come here, and then they would get college credits. I recall I did reach out to the gentleman at that time who was the contact, that was just the name that someone gave me. And I think they either said they said that guy retired and they weren't doing it anymore. But maybe they have a new contact, this was a couple of years ago, and I'd be happy to reach out to them.
Because,
Boston University, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Ferry, isn't there somebody from, I want to say BU that did work for you? Checking, was it Dale Falls? Way back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Civil.
Yes.
No, it was a woman.
Yes.
Civil.
She GPS located all of the outfalls, stormwater outfalls.
Okay, that was part of her marine program. So, and Bridgewater State, yes, we've had those too, so, who knows, there may be something at BCC or UMass Dartmouth. We got a lot of schools around here.
We do, we really do, we really do. BCC.
Mr. Chairman?
Huh?
In Taunton, they use high school students.
Ah.
Are there any, does DR Have a video program.
They have a video program, and we've asked, they unfortunately don't have anybody that they could have offered, but he's going to bring it up with this upcoming school year, in September. So hopefully, once the school year starts, we can try to get some people from the program, because that would be obviously the ideal situation. Just no one's really bit our bait the past few years with that.
What the two video teachers did, they gave extra credit. Started with Peter Higgins and then the gentleman, Mr. Jakes. They gave incentives to the students, extra credit, to be involved in their cable, both the municipal channel and the school channel.
Yeah, they had a whole program at the high school, like, because I know the courthouse, every semester we would get 1 or 2 students that worked in probation. They didn't get paid anything, they were interns, and they would actually do some running and that kind of stuff. In the first graduation I went to for that, those students from that program, the person that we had decided she did not want to go on probation. So shocked by it. She was so good at it. We became a lawyer.
So how would we go about getting those kids extra credit? Like that can be an incentive for them to join. Like I don't know how I would go, would we talk to the video professor, or would that be something for the school committee?
They have like it's usually, I would just say usually, because I think maybe different schools are different, but usually it's like a program with a program coordinator, and that's the person you would talk to, who you would reach out to upon, I don't know, some successful completion of whatever these projects are for the intern, to say, hey, so-and-so, you an intern, Mike?
No, the magic word is internship.
Yes, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It is an internship program, I should have said that explicitly, but it's for credits, it's not for compensation, though we do have interns.
I'm gonna suggest that this be handled through, I don't want to give more work, but I'm gonna give you more work. Town administrator, I think.
Sure.
If we can have a discussion about this, we really need help.
You're on your own. Good luck. Invent an internship program, guys. We will absolutely, this is a priority, and I will help the town administrator however he needs on this, and reach out to whatever universities, we have some leads according to
Any
select
guidance
board,
on
so.
how to really.
It takes no, it takes no effort.
Program as well, like a video and radio program.
It's possible.
I think I covered all of that, I can't remember. So.
That's where next power actually.
That is where he went, and I think, so our reach is pretty far, so I'm happy to reach out to whatever department we have, at whatever university or school.
Thank you, school.
Thank you for your everybody's
More
input.
work. Yeah, to the list.
Is that it?
It doesn't even phase it anymore. I'm just kidding.
So one of the things, if I could, Mr. Chairman, if we could table agenda item 15 until after agenda item 16.
Oh, well, that makes sense. You wanna do that? Is that okay?
That was me.
No, you didn't. It's okay. You wanted me to have dinner. Yes.
What agenda item is this?
Adjournment.
Executive session. Yes, September, yes. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Yeah.
Want me to read it?
No, it's okay. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, Selectman Hall, I motion that we enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting can have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Alrighty. Negotiations with Dayton police officers, Mass Cop 306 update.
Second.
Second.
We will now reconvene, so this will be in the public meeting. As for a roll call vote, Selectman Cassidy. Selectman Hull. And Ken Chico, you said aye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Cable, thank you.